Flock cameras capture a complete vehicle fingerprint and use neural networks to identify and track people. Flock's system can generate heat maps, charting a vehicle's movements for 30 days, which can be used to reconstruct a person's movements, associations, and habits. Flock's nationwide data sharing allows police in one state to track vehicles in another without probable cause. Flock cameras have been under much public scrutiny lately, and many have been destroyed. But Flock isn't the only private company helping to build a mass surveillance state. A company called Axon launched a clip-on streetlight camera called the Axon Light Post in 2025. The device is powered by the streetlight's socket and is designed to be installed on existing streetlights in under an hour. Axon terminated its partnership with Flock Safety in January 2023, which was seen as a strategic move to compete with Flock. But Axon is also less noticeable than Flock and much more difficult to destroy. The Fourth Amendment requires a detailed warrant with probable cause, but these new surveillance programs are collecting data on everyone without any suspicion and are in direct violation of the Fourth Amendment. Privacy is foundational to liberty. It is an area within which the individual is free from interference and able to do and think whatever he chooses. Without private space, individuals cannot develop their own thoughts or make independent decisions. Privacy ensures the government must rely on the consent of the governed, rather than predictive surveillance. Privacy shields individuals from arbitrary interference by the state, and the loss of privacy creates a relationship of domination. Privacy allows for the mistakes, embarrassments, and false starts that are part of human life without permanent public record. Modern surveillance systems that make every aspect of public life permanent, searchable, and trackable are fundamentally incompatible with the freedoms outlined in the U.S. Constitution. The transition from Flock to Axon is already happening rapidly on a local level. The Axon Light Post is designed to plug directly into the existing sockets of standard streetlights within minutes. Most U.S. police forces already use Axon body cameras, Axon Fleet dash cams, and Axon tasers. Axon is now adding the Light Post surveillance tech into their existing software, Axon Fusus, which is already used by most police departments. Axon Enterprise recently acquired Carbine, an Israeli-founded emergency call management and 911 AI mapping platform. Carbine's platform is being merged with Axon's ecosystem to power Axon 911, which is already deployed in 49 U.S. states. Axon 911 feeds directly into Axon Evidence, which is already used by over 500,000 law enforcement officers across the United States. While Carbine is now owned by Axon Enterprise, Axon has maintained Carbine's development center in Tel Aviv, where roughly 80 Israeli engineers continue to code and build the software's infrastructure. Section 219 in the 2027 National Defense Authorization Act establishes the United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative, which will deeply integrate Israeli technologies, including AI, cyber, and autonomous systems, into U.S. defense procurement. Because Axon is an American company operating an R&D lab in Tel Aviv, the passing of this bill would make it easier for Axon to pursue federal U.S. military contracts using technology built by its Israeli engineers. By permanently embedding Israeli-designed software, quantum computing frameworks, and AI systems into the bedrock of the U.S. military, the U.S. becomes structurally dependent on a foreign power for its own defense. The United States-Israel Defense Technology Cooperation Initiative in the 2027 NDAA is designed to lock in these technological partnerships. If a future U.S. president or Congress wanted to halt military aid to Israel due to human rights abuses or policy disagreements, doing so would become incredibly difficult because the U.S. military's own systems would be codependent on Israeli code and components. Greg Reese reporting.
Hello and welcome to the Diamond Report Live. This is your host, Doug Diamond. We are here yet again, 9:06 p.m. on July 19th, 2026. Hard to believe we are well into summer at this point, and we were just chatting away in the chat on the Diamond Report, one of the Diamond Report YouTube channels on Take It to the Lord in Prayer, and folks were saying how hot and humid it is. And it seems to be that way everywhere. That is certainly an underlying concern, and one of those things that Mr. Dane has been pointing out on his GeoWatch broadcast every single week, how humid it is most places. So anyway, I wanted to bring your attention to the Drudge Report, just the top headlines here, and yeah, I know it's a liberal rag now. It's not run at all, I don't think, by Matt Drudge, like it used to be. But yeah, American death toll hits 17. That is, I think, the total number so far, and just a couple more have been killed real recently in further bombings. And they've also got Iran crosses the red line, more Trump threats, wider war fears, and oil prices surge. But then, who cares? It was just the World Cup finals today, and that's all that the regular people out there seem to care about. And Spain won. Spain beat Argentina in the World Cup final, so it's all over officially. No, actually, I don't really know that many people that care that much about the World Cup, but I'm sure they're out there. Seems to be a lot of people that are, let's just say, of foreign descent, really care about it a lot. People that haven't necessarily been folks that have grown up in the U.S. The rest of the world calls it football, but the U.S. is the only one I think that calls it soccer. But I personally didn't watch much of it, just some bits and pieces here and there. I do find it interesting, though, and Argentina was the underdog for sure, so Spain was the one, from what I gather, was the favorite, and they did win. The other headlines here on Drudge Report says the team wins $50 million and the IRS gets a big cut. You can bet on that for sure. And then let's talk about one of the players as well, Messi, who's on the Argentinian team. It says Messi. So anyway, I thought this one was interesting, though. This was the only real takeaway I had from it. And that, of course, was the halftime show, which, ranks right up there with all the other halftime shows that you know about and have grown to really dislike over the years. And this soccer legend here on this little panel says, I thought it was crap, quote unquote. And it was Madonna headlining it. I mean, I didn't even know she was still around. 11-minute show featured Shakira, Madonna, BTS, Justin Bieber, or as Alex says, Biebler, and Burna Boy, whoever that is. And then performance was curated by Chris Martin of Coldplay. So apparently wasn't that great, according to at least this guy, who is a English soccer legend named Wayne Rooney. He is now a analyst for BBC's World Cup men's final broadcast. He says, I thought it was crap. So he's probably actually correct about that. I didn't see it either, but I'm sure many of you guys did not see it and don't care to. Anyway, I just thought that was kind of funny because you got somebody out there calling it like it is or like it was. All right, let's look at HalTurnerRadioShow.com. We've got a lot of news to look at tonight, so hopefully I can get through everything. I don't know. There's about, I would say, half again as many links as I normally have. I spent a lot of time on curating things to look at tonight, so some of them are memes, so we do have our share of memes tonight. We don't normally have that, but I thought I would put up a few just because I found some interesting ones. Anyway, let's start with this one on Hal's site. Moscow smashes largest logistics center in Kiev, or Kyiv, as some people say. We know it's not chicken Kyiv, though, right? The dish, it's not chicken Kyiv, it's chicken Kiev. That's where I get Kiev, so that's how I pronounce it. During last night's missile barrage into Kiev, Ukraine, Russia destroyed one of the largest logistics centers in Kiev, Amtel Logistics. So there's a non-blurry picture versus this one, but you can see the before and after on Hal's site. So that's pretty wild. And, Russia continues to do what they do. And then another headline from his same site: reports of ship ablaze in Gulf of Oman near Hormuz Strait. So, more of the same. Feel free to look at this. This is all on the free side on Hal's website, halturnerradioshow.com. A couple of earthquakes recently as well. Magnitude 4.9 struck Iran. He's putting earthquake in quotes here. I think that's kind of interesting. Was it a tectonic weapon, or he's inferring, I think, that it was a rather large bomb, I think is what he's saying here. Magnitude 4.9 earthquake has struck Iran. Now, this was earlier today, I guess, our time. According to the USGS, there are very many earthquakes in this area. That's the way Hal talks. There are very many. You could just say there's lots of earthquakes in this area. The world is, however, wondering if the U.S. did something that might initially seem like an earthquake. He says, awaiting further reports. So I don't know. 4.9 is not that big for an earthquake, but it is. If it was a bomb, it would have been a massive bomb. So who knows? But again, we're only getting limited information here. And of course, it's going through the mainstream media American filter system, which cannot be trusted. So it's hard to say. And then, as I mentioned at the beginning here tonight, sadly, more U.S. military killed. These people were in Jordan. 2 U.S. military members in Jordan today. I've seen conflicting numbers. I've seen 2 and I've seen 4, so I'm not really sure what is correct on that. It says after Iranian missiles killed at least two U.S. military members in Jordan today. This was dated yesterday. U.S. is unleashing an overwhelming wave of military attacks against Iran. United States Air Force has launched a massive direct bombardment against strategic military infrastructure inside southern Iran. So going back to our earthquake, that's really western Iran, not southern. So who knows? Again, will we ever find out? Probably not. And then there was one other earthquake I wanted to mention as well. Let's see, there's this one dated yesterday. Kiev burning after 30 Russian missiles hit rapidly. 7.3 earthquake. Rather large, yet again, smashes Mexico. I don't think it was as bad as smashes. It was out to sea just slightly. But it definitely puts one in recent memory of what struck in the 2 that struck back to back in Venezuela. So that said, I do have the earthquake USGS site here that we can take a look at. Let's look at this. Thought this was kind of interesting. The it's not really a fault line. The plate boundary line right here, you can see ends in Venezuela and ends over here in Mexico, and this is basically about where these earthquakes happened, although they were at sea apparently. There are multiple ones. I guess the 7.3 has now, it's been long enough, it's dropped off of here because there have been a number of 4s and 5s since then. I do not know how much damage it might have occurred after all of this. 7.3 is rather large. But these 4s and 5s out to sea probably wouldn't have done a whole lot. So anyway, kind of interesting, and it is perhaps connected, being how the plate boundary certainly is connected. You can see here on USGS, that's what the red line is, between Caracas, Venezuela area and about where these earthquakes happened in Mexico. So kind of interesting, and, something's going on. Ring of fire for sure. Let's see. Let's take a look at this one. This is needtoknow.news. Candace Owens and James Lee analysis of the evidence presented at Tyler Robinson's hearing. Go Max. James Lee and Candace each commented on Tyler Robinson's preliminary hearing last week to determine whether there is enough evidence against him to take it to trial. The evidence and issues surrounding the case include the rooftop timeline, the witnesses who filmed the purported shooter on the rooftop, the second bullet from a police weapon that was ignored. I mentioned that last week. Reports of 3 people in the getaway car, and the conversation with the surgeon about Charlie's neck of steel that apparently never happened. Yeah, and I guess we're not supposed to remember that. Short clip from former UVU officer Christopher Bagley testified that his body cam stopped recording in the chaotic aftermath of the gunfire, adding fresh scrutiny to the case. It's already under intense national attention as prosecutors push to send Robinson to trial and pursue the death penalty. Yeah, Kim Iverson stated it pretty well here.
Well, Tyler Robinson is sitting in a 5-day preliminary hearing. This is the pretrial to decide whether or not the prosecution has brought forward enough evidence to actually take the case to a full-blown trial. If you're not biased on this case at all, if you're just somebody who doesn't care at all, which many people don't, and you actually look at this.
What I don't know is this video does have some music in the background. Hopefully it won't be a problem, but we'll let it play for just a few seconds and I'll keep stopping it probably.
We're not seeing the gun. We're not seeing the gun being shot. We're not seeing him very clearly. Everything's very fuzzy. And this is the evidence that they have. This is Tyler Robinson's defense attorney, and she's asking the first officer who was on the roof after the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And here she is questioning him.
Yeah, so I'm going to keep stopping this just because you never know with these clips and playing stuff that has music in them what might happen with the live stream because different algorithms search for different things as you're broadcasting. So obviously I don't want my live stream shut down.
While you were on the roof, did you encounter any spent casings?
As a matter of fact, no. I was looking for a spent shell casing. I couldn't see one. I was looking over the edge, looking all over the place, making sure the gravel wasn't
He couldn't find any shell casings. How about that?
disturbed, and I couldn't find a shell casing at that moment.
Are you aware of there being a bullet found on another roof?
I'm not.
He wasn't aware that there was a bullet found on another roof, which was actually the roof behind the Losi Center, which was higher up than the Losi Center. So it was a roof that was looking down on the Losi Center directly behind it.
Were you aware of another bullet being found on the scene, not on the roof of the Losi building?
No.
All right, your body cam footage that I reviewed appears to end while you're still on the roof. Do you know why that is?
I think the battery went dead. It was just right at that moment.
Yeah, it just went dead right at that moment. And what he doesn't bother to tell you is, before those batteries go dead, they usually vibrate multiple times, at least twice, when there's just a few minutes left, and then even less than just a few minutes left. So he would have been warned. So my guess is he reached down and turned it off, because obviously they can do that. And that might be visible on the footage if the footage leading up to where it gets switched off ever comes out, which who knows if it will, but it is highly interesting, I think. Anyway, it goes on here. There's a little bit more to this video. James Lee's commentary on the preliminary trial, that's embedded here. And then, of course, Candace's Tyler Robinson show trial is what she's calling it. It's really a preliminary trial. Yeah, it was. I think there was an element of it being a show trial as well. But she puts out some really good information on this whole ordeal, and then has some really good questions posed, for sure. Candace criticized evidence from Robinson's boyfriend, quote-unquote boyfriend, Furry Lance Twiggs, and questions his potential involvement in Charlie's murder. Pointed out that the DNA that was found on the trigger guard had several sources, and Tyler Robinson had the most degraded prints of all. So, pretty wild. Anyway, there's multiple Candace videos here and clips, I guess, embedded on this particular article on needtoknow.news. But I say all that to say this. This is the interesting video I came across, and I wanted to play just a little bit of this. This is a Stu Peters clip from one of his recent shows. This is dated July 13th. But you'll see something in this is something that many people have been talking about, myself included. The exploding exploding explosives factory in Tennessee is mentioned here. And I just happened to be watching this earlier and caught this. So we'll just listen to a few minutes of this, but I think the evidence sort of speaks for itself, including what seems to be a purchase order or an invoice directly related to the Tennessee company that exploded that we've been talking about time and time again on this show. Something to look at. Potentially, it could be where the microphone, or the explosive at least, was assembled that ultimately did in Mr. Kirk. I would say this, that the girl talking here is not who we're looking at on the screen. This is simply a person she's talking about, but she is got a lot of makeup. So I'm not sure why she looks the way she looks. However, her information is, I think, really good. So just try to ignore that, though. Here we go.
Well, get ready, buckle up. Oh boy, yes. So that is Dr. Angela D. Lewis. This is where it gets a little bit scary, Stu, I'm going to tell you. So here's the thing. Dr. Angela D. Lewis, she's someone that I came across because as I had started to develop this working theory of what I might be seeing here, what I figured was, okay, so the Defense Intelligence Agency, a few folks from the Pentagon, a few folks from CENTCOM, it might make sense if they were at a high-level meeting. I can see that, especially if it were some sort of demonstration or planning event. But what I figured was, if this had anything to do with accurate energetic systems, then what I needed to do was take a look at the individuals that are associated with Crane.
So Accurate Energetic Systems is the name of the plant that we've looked at their website multiple times, the factory in Tennessee. It's in McEwen, Tennessee, about 30 miles from where I'm sitting. And that's the plant that exploded literally exactly a month after Charlie was killed. Okay? So that's the plant in Tennessee that exploded that potentially could have been involved in creating the explosive.
Because Crane is the destination of the extra small shaped charged munition.
Okay, we're talking about the anti-personnel micro-explosive DOD $440,000 order that we found for Accurate Energetic Systems.
That's right.
So this is the document that I was wondering about. I didn't even know that this existed. But you can see here, recipient, Accurate Energetic Systems, LLC in McEwen, Tennessee. Gives the full address and stuff here. This was it says obligated amount, $440,494. Awarding agency, Department of Defense, DOD. This was purchased, see it's right here, it says it's a purchase order. Start date May 1st, 2025. Current end date August 25th, 2025. So the dates work. So let's finish listening to this clip.
That was an order that was, I believe, opened on, I think, May 25th. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I think it was May 25th, and then it was closed on August 25th or 6th, right in there. So that was something that ended up being sent to NSWC Crane. That's a very specific military base that's up in Indiana. And as you know, I'm sure, every military base serves a little bit of a different purpose as far as what they specialize in. Crane in particular, they deal with microelectronics. And so that's the sort of thing that, you know, if you were sent a component, that was the sort of thing that maybe you needed to end up in a road microphone, you receive the component, and Crane certainly would be more than capable of putting that together to go into a road microphone or whatever the, you know, instrument might be. So when I, thought about the fact that, okay, Crane, it makes a lot of sense, but do we have any sort of indication that that device made its way from Crane to Fort Huachuca? I thought, well, the best way to check on that is to see if any individual associated with Crane appears in Fort Huachuca. And so Dr. Angela D. Lewis is the division tech director at Crane, who oversees their advanced weaponry program as well as drone coordination. Dr. Jonathan M. Dilger is the director of research at Crane. He also has he has oversight of their microelectronics department. And Captain Rex Buyabas is the commander of Crane.
This guy.
That's right.
And what's his name? This is the commander of Crane. What's his name?
Captain Rex Buyabas.
How do you spell that?
It right. Booyobas. A little bit of an unusual name. And
who has heard of this guy before? Have you ever heard of this guy before?
No. And so imagine my surprise.
Imagine your surprise when you saw this. Somebody who had the exact spelling, because again, these are in quotes.
That's right.
And look at these people being searched from Sierra Vista on Fort Huachuca between
Image
August
searched.
1st and September 10th.
That's right. Image searched, including Captain Rex Bunyobas.
So one of the things she's saying here about the searches, why that's significant, is she was saying most likely it was being searched at these times because these people were being picked up by other military officers in the Fort Huachuca area, because this search has to do with the area right here at Tucson where Sierra Vista is, I guess. That's where Fort Huachuca is. So what she's saying is that these people are going to pick up people at the airport, military people going to the airport to pick up people, and they didn't know necessarily what these people looked like. So they're doing fairly complex searches for their full name and, well, their title and their name is what it is. And the point is here that it's only other military people that would be searching for things like this versus just your regular person who wouldn't necessarily know those things, especially in this date range.
All the way up until, I believe, the most recent one for him was September 7th, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Sorry, I can't hover over the image, because we're doing this from
Yeah.
But Captain Rex Bunyobas is not only the commander of Crane, but he also is in charge of their logistics and operations, which means that if you wanted to transfer a device, for example, just a hypothetical, but if you wanted to take an explosive device and you wanted to move that device from point A to point B, like from Crane to Fort Huachuca, or if you wanted to move that device from point A to point B to point C, well, that would be the person who would coordinate those logistics, Captain Rex. And he does appear. The thing that I hope that, that I have been thinking about, that I think, maybe is worth us keeping in the back of our mind, that contract specifically, it never designated a quantity, right? We know that it's something that was not some frequent order. This isn't some standing order that they sent to Crane. This is the type of item that was a very specialty item that they had never received a contract for before. And I do not believe that they've received anything even very similar since. But the specialty item, $440,000, it never says that that item is specifically one. And my hypothesis, and this is just me personally, but it, in my opinion, would make a lot more sense if maybe they ordered two.
Or
because
10.
you would need one. Or 10, sure, who knows, right? Who knows?
Yeah.
But you might need one to demonstrate, because the system...
You might need to test them. You might need to demonstrate them. You might need to have a show and tell, with all of the people. If you were planning a military mission and it was a high-risk mission, you want to make sure that you've got all your bases covered. So you want to make sure that consistently over and over and over again, you rehearse, you walk through, you war game, you game plan, you make sure that things are going to go off without a hitch. And the more you go over these things, obviously, the less likely that there is a malfunction or a slip or somebody doesn't know what to do or where the device is, etc. Well, the same thing would be true if you were planning to publicly assassinate Charlie Kirk and you wanted a weaponized exploding lavalier microphone with a shape charge placed underneath his white Freedom shirt to send a projectile into his chest, to make it look like or to replicate the trauma that one would expect from a 30-06 high-powered rifle where you have a patsy on a rooftop pretending to shoot one.
Okay, now listen to this. This is key. This is one of the things that keeps coming up with this whole thing with, okay, if there was a shooter on the roof, how would you time that with the exploding microphone? Apparently, there is technology that would do that. Check this out.
And and just to buoy that theory, it is relevant, I would say, that at Crane, that is where they are in charge of using their microelectronics division specifically to arrange for remote triggers, remote detonation, simultaneous detonations. For example, if someone wanted to have a lapel mic, go off at the same time that maybe a gunshot was fired overhead, that the way that you could coordinate that being done at the exact same moment would be through simultaneous detonation. And that is very specifically something that they work on at Crane and that they test at the electronic proving ground at Fort Huachuca.
Okay. Well, you get the point. How about that? Isn't that completely insane? Anyway, I wanted to play that little clip for you just because I felt like it really tied up a couple loose ends, at least as far as the way I understand how this whole thing could have gone down. And, the people that she was talking about, those military people, wouldn't have known who the target was necessarily. They were just carrying out their job. It's information only. And so nobody's saying that these people all were, in cahoots trying to kill Charlie Kirk. Nobody's saying that. But the point is, you've got all of these people who were being searched by probably other military people in the area because they were flying into that area. So the people that were going to go pick them up at the airport knew what they looked like. So you've got them more or less in the area at the right time. And then you have the receipts, the purchase order from the DOD to the explosives manufacturing facility in Tennessee. So things are starting to come together, aren't they? Pretty wild. I just wanted to point those things out to you guys because I figured you guys might be very interested, as I am, in that whole thing. Anyways, let's keep moving here. We've got more on, not really too much more on Charlie tonight, but we've got more just various things that we need to look at. So let's keep going here. All right, so this is I think pretty big deal. This is Trump's nominee for CDC, and guess what? There's a few little details about her that we might want to know about. CDC nominee Erica Schwartz pressed on whether she will resist RFK Jr.'s vaccine agenda. Funny how they word that, isn't it? Resist RFK Jr.'s vaccine agenda because he's just so crazy. He is an anti-vaxxer. I mean, that's the way it sounds, of course. That's what they intend. It is the Guardian that we're talking about here. During confirmation hearing Wednesday, Trump's pick, again, Erica Schwartz for the CDC, tells the Senate Health Committee she would never betray the science, meaning she's going to go right along with whatever the Center for Disease Creation official narrative is. Okay? Trump administration's latest nominee to lead the CDC faced sharp questioning from senators who pressed her to say whether she would stand up to her boss, Health Secretary RFK Jr. Now, why would she do that if he is also been put in place by Trump and he's supposed to have the overall say on what goes down, on what happens? Why would they need to put somebody in that counters him purposely? That tells me they're trying to force out RFK Jr. Personally, I think that's what's going on. Anyway, it says during a confirmation hearing on Wednesday, Schwartz, a deputy surgeon general in the first Trump administration, told the Senate Health Committee she will never betray the science and pledged to use radical transparency to rebuild public trust in the CDC, I guess. But she repeatedly deflected questions about how she would handle pressure from Kennedy, a leader in the anti-vaccine movement and crazy person. They didn't add that, but that's what they mean. A leader in the anti-vaccine movement who has overseen months of turmoil at the agency and made controversial changes to U.S. vaccine policies. I don't think that he's been able to do everything he wants just because he's also, having his hands tied by the Trump administration to a large degree, from what I gather. It says Schwartz told him, meaning Bill Cassidy, when questioned, that Kennedy will absolutely allow me to be the CDC director, according to this. So maybe they've had a conversation. I don't know. So anyway, that's the Guardian article about this. But here are a couple of interesting screenshots. And I think you can see, probably, if you're watching and not just listening on audio, can kind of see what it is she's wearing around her neck. And because of this, I'm guessing you know why they want her in there. They tell us what they're going to do before they do it, don't they? Interesting last name she has, too. Schwartz. Schwartz. I wonder where she got that last name. And then there's this one. Dr. Erica Schwartz personally wrote and signed direct orders mandating smallpox, anthrax, and flu vaccines for the U.S. Coast Guard troops during her tenure as the service's chief medical officer. Critics, including attorney Aaron Seary, allege she enforced these mandates with, quote, threats and discipline, end quote. For those who refused, a track record they cite as evidence against her suitability to lead the CDC. It sounds like that's the perfect person to run the CDC if they want somebody that will enforce what the Trump administration want done. Hopefully you guys can read that. Try to expand it there so you can read it. Here's another one. Another little interesting tidbit. Dr. Erica Schwartz explicitly stated under oath that mRNA vaccine technology is, quote, safe and effective. During her July 15th, 2026 Senate confirmation hearing to lead the CDC, she affirmed this position while testifying that she accepts evidence linking vaccines to no autism diagnoses. So there you go. She is a perfect brainwashed automaton to put in charge of the CDC. She cannot think for herself, therefore she's perfect for this position. That's what I'm concluding. I'm sure many of you guys would agree. Anyways, here we go again, huh? Just never ends. Never does. All right. This is another one that I came across that I thought was really interesting. We've talked about this before, but it's been a while. The falsifying of crime stats may be one of the top 3 most important topics to meme into the mainstream. Check out the devastating first video that the DOD posted on Instagram, but it's not the same DOD. This is Department of Deportations, DOD. They actually did post this on their X account. I'm going to mute it because I think it's just a music track playing, so that part's not important, obviously. It's what's being displayed here over a 12-second little time lapse, but it goes fast, and I think you'll see what's happening here. Every single person they show on the screen is listed as white. So again, falsifying crime stats. They're listing every person with dark skin that you'll see here in a 12-second period of time is, quote, white. So I'm going to mute it, but I'm going to expand this and let it play a couple of times just so you can see that even though it goes by really fast, you can see every person on here that they're calling white. And the names. Lots of Mohammeds and other folks. So the point is, they're not exactly telling the truth here. Not exactly. Here I guess we can kind of scrub through this. So this is the first white person listed, and it tells their crime, I guess, on some of these. There's the next white person. Here's another one. And they have white names, too, you can see. This guy. I haven't seen any women yet. There might be some, I don't know. Clearly, he's a white guy. Some white names. As common as Smith and Jones. All these as well. Here's some more. 3 more white people. And yet again, more white people. Now, I'm looking for an actual white person, and I haven't seen any yet. He's getting close, but he has a very clearly non-white type of name. Anyway, you get the idea. So they're clearly, there's all the Mohammeds. They're clearly doing this so that they can falsify the stats to get more funding and to also go after white people, of course. Department of Deportations, following our new Instagram account at Department of Deportations. So if you want to follow them, they're apparently on Instagram. White labeling is an anti-white tactic to obfuscate statistics and demonize the white race. Yep. Joe is correct. Anyway, I came across that and thought that was pretty wild, and definitely explains a lot, doesn't it? All right, we've got another need-to-know.news article. I guess you could call this a follow-up, even though maybe it's not. Nancy Pelosi's husband, remember, he's the member of the Gay Hammer Fight Club. And the first rule of Gay Hammer Fight Club is what? You never talk about Gay Hammer Fight Club. That's the first rule. But he broke it, and apparently he's up to no good yet again. Paul Pelosi has been charged with hit and run after allegedly plowing into a parked car. Doesn't say if he got out and hit it with a hammer, though, after he was done plowing into it. He might have. Let's read and see what it says. Napa Valley, California. Paul Pelosi, the 86-year-old husband of former Speaker of the House, Nancy, is now facing misdemeanor hit-and-run charges after he allegedly plowed into a Tesla. Oh, that's a problem. Parked on the side of the road on July 3rd, Pelosi continued driving until his vehicle, disabled from the crash, stopped working. Wow. He just kept going. Police reported that alcohol was not a factor in the crash because there was no sign of impairment. He just really hated Teslas, I guess. That's what I'm assuming. Police body cam footage of the incident will not be released until the conclusion of the case. Paul has a history of car crashes that includes a drunk driving crash in 2022. And when he was 16, 70 years ago, when he was 16, he was driving a car that flipped into an embankment and killed his brother. Wow. He's got quite the history, doesn't he? Going back at least 70 years. Last week, a spokesperson for Pelosi said, quote, Mr. Paul Pelosi has personally apologized to the owner of the vehicle and assured them that he would take responsibility for the damage to their vehicle. Paul Pelosi is reported to be worth $250 million, according to AI. Nancy Pelosi has faced allegations of insider trading due to her family's significant stock trading activity, which includes approximately $59 million in trades over 3 years. This has led to calls for increased oversight and legislation to prevent potential conflicts of interest among lawmakers. Yeah, well, they should start with the president because the current president has made untold billions already. Paul Pelosi and Nancy Pelosi seem like small-time criminals compared to what Trump has done. But I digress. Anyway, yeah, so he plows into the parked Tesla and he just keeps going until his own car just stops. Video of Dave Rubin from 2022 when Paul Pelosi was arrested for drunk driving. Okay, this is a different incident. So there's some other videos here, I guess, embedded too. This one in Napa was on July 3rd, so not too long ago. So yes, again, that's what happens when you start talking about Gay Hammer Fight Club. There's just no end to the trouble you run into, apparently. I wouldn't know. But Paul knows. All right, technocracy.news. Take a look at a few of these. Well, a couple of these articles for tonight. Is Iraq's new technocrat a rehearsal for Iran? President Trump meets with Iraq's Prime Minister Ali al-Zaidi in the Oval Office of the White House on Tuesday, July 14th. So that's who this guy is, the Prime Minister of Iraq. First, there was the Technocrat-in-Chief meeting on July 14th with an up-and-coming, newly selected technocrat prime minister from Iraq. We'll just call him Ali. Secondly, the multi-billion-dollar deals flowed like the Euphrates River. Yeah, but the Euphrates is drying up, so I'm not sure how good of an analogy that is. Why does this matter? Because we have fought two bloody wars in and over Iraq, and right now we are still pounding Iran, a country that is closely allied with Iraq. Iraq and Iran share a border, a religion, and a long, tangled history. You cannot talk about one without the other. Trump has now turned the tables. Instead of treating Iraq as a problem to manage, he's embracing it as a partner to build. And the man he's embracing is Ali here, this guy, who has been installed as a, quote, technocrat to reform Iraq's economy and its trade relationships. Ali was not elected. He said so himself on television, more or less. He was chosen by a committee of Iraq's political parties called the Coordination Framework in a meeting that reportedly took 25 minutes. So he got chosen. Wow. Reports say Trump was not directly involved in picking him, but Trump forced the outcome by eliminating the other leading contender. Wonder what they mean by eliminating. The other guy was named Nouri. He wanted the job, and Trump made it clear that American support of Iraq would be cut off if he got it. So then the other guy was put in. So there you go. They want the almighty dollar. So it's Trump's choice. I wonder why. I guess it must have to do with him doing everything he's told. Most likely. Perhaps the other guy said that he wouldn't. Anyway, that one is a technocracy.news article. Full article is available at the moment. And then we got one more from the same site. Let it load. Yeah. AI executives add personal security as backlash turns violent. Of course, we never promote violence around here, but it is interesting, isn't it? People are starting to rise up against the AI data centers. When society rises against you in vast numbers, when acts of violence are leveled at you to stop what you're doing, when you're forced to hire security guards for your personal security, you would think that anyone with a conscience would stop and consider maybe it's me and not everybody else. Alas, that is not the response of a narcissistic sociopath, whether it's a CEO at the top or a city councilman at the bottom. Nevertheless, ordinary citizens outnumber these people by 100,000 to 1. Yeah, at least. Psychologists say that you can't truly stop or change a narcissistic sociopath's behavior. You force them out of their current positions only to see them surface in other areas. Yeah, unfortunately, that is very true, isn't it? I'm sure many of you guys have known exactly those type of people. Narcissistic sociopaths. Yeah, and that is certainly the people running everything at this point. But you guys, I think, your ordinary, average, everyday citizen doesn't want power and control of all these different systems and things and to be multi-billionaires and have all the power in the that they can possibly get. And yet, that is certainly what narcissistic sociopaths attempt to attain. In April, someone threw a Molotov cocktail at Sam Altman's San Francisco home, and within days, a second attack put gunfire into the property. The Wall Street Journal reports that AI executives are hardening personal security as the opposition to industry moves from online posts into the physical world. This is probably why they need the pre-crime setup that they're all working towards. Prosecutors say Daniel Marino Gamma, the 20-year-old accused of the first attack, traveled from Texas to San Francisco intending to kill Sam Altman and had writings on him about AI's purported risk to humanity. He faces 2 counts of attempted murder and attempted arson in California state court. 2 more suspects were later arrested in connection with the second incident. Around the same time, the information described Silicon Valley leaning into a new breed of bodyguards for AI leadership. The pressure isn't only on the people at the top, according to the Data Center Watch Quarter 1 2026 report. Organized opposition groups roughly doubled from 396 at the end of last year to 833 by the end of March, spanning 49 states. And opponents blocked or delayed at least 75 projects worth about $130 billion in a single quarter. That is a very different problem from a viral tweet. It is permits denied, votes lost, and sites relocated. So they need their protection, sounds like. If they would stop the crimes, if they would stop the never-ending expansion of AI data centers, perhaps things would change, but they don't seem to be going down that road at all. This is on Yahoo News. Iran depicts Trump in a coffin on a massive billboard. Look at this. Giant billboard in Tehran depicts President DJT in a coffin with Persian text reading, "We KILL Trump." There he is right here, see? Going around to this corner of this building. A large billboard unveiled in central Tehran depicting DJT dead in a coffin has intensified concerns over escalating rhetoric from Iran. The public display follows the recent funeral ceremonies of the Ayatollah, in which mourners openly called for KILLing Trump, Netanyahu as well, and the late Senator Lindsey Graham, who they might have gotten, but I don't know. The verdict is still out on that one. Could have been the old VIXX that got him on that one. The new display, erected in Islamic Revolution Square, includes the English language phrase, "We KILL Trump," alongside imagery widely interpreted as a direct threat against the American leader. Yeah, I think that's about as direct as you can get, most likely. And this is a different one. Iranian billboard says, Trump is, quote, next one after Lindsey Graham. And note how they did this one. They're hashtagging Lindsey Graham here in small print, but it says, who is the next one? And note that the D is capitalized and the T in next is capitalized. So very clearly a sign that was meant to be interpreted as DJT. A billboard has appeared in Tehran suggesting that Trump will be targeted for assassination and also heavily implies Senator Lindsey Graham did not die from natural causes, which I don't think anyone's saying natural causes. It was either the VIXX or he got a severe case of the Russian missile on his head. I'm not sure which it was. A billboard has appeared in Tehran suggesting Trump will be targeted for assassination and also heavily implies Graham did not die from natural causes. There have been a flood of public threats against Trump in Iran after funeral and former supreme leader of the Ayatollah, who was killed in the initial strikes of the war at the end of February. So, I don't know. I'm not sure where it's going, but something to watch for. And, of course, he said that if he dies, basically, and they take credit for it, then we need to unleash holy you-know-what on Iran, and I guess that's probably what would happen, most likely. So let's all pray that that does not happen. All right, and then we've got this one and then a video that will kind of go along with this as well. So let's take a look at this. Zero Hedge article. White DSA member inadvertently exposes socialist playbook. Secret Nazis, quote unquote, are fine if they advance the agenda. Far-left podcaster and Democrat Socialists of America, that's the DSA that we've all been hearing about so much lately, member Emma Vigeland appeared to inadvertently expose the far-left's movement's ends justifies the means political calculus. Even a secret Nazi, quote unquote, would be acceptable if the candidate advanced a national socialist agenda. Vigeland, a former field reporter, producer, and commentator for the Young Turks, has identified as a DSA member and co-hosts the Majority Report with Sam Sater. She explained on a separate Vox podcast that she doesn't care if a progressive or socialist candidate has, quote, Nazi skeletons in their closet. So there you go. Here's the quote. I am wary of over-focusing on an individual's personal character over their platform. I've said this before. I don't really care if, say, like Bernie Sanders or AOC go home and they're a secret Nazi, but they go out and they vote for far-right things, like we're talking about politician. The DSA member said earlier this month. So this is the quote here where she is stating that, I guess. Again, not very surprising. I think anything is possible with these people. So these are the people that will be attempting the next takeover at the next, quote, election. So let's watch this. Let's watch this video, and I think you'll see further exposing of what they're all about.
I mean, our goal is liberation. Our goal is communism.
Мира и счастья всем вам. Who's that, Mike?
And, we have a unique responsibility to act from the heart of empire, the belly of the beast. The most important thing that we can do is take that empire down from within.
Our role ultimately is to facilitate our own empire's failure in ways that we can, ultimately to overthrow our own empire.
U.S. imperialism is not a thing that can be reformed away. It has to be overthrown through revolutionary struggle.
And to build a mass movement that can use the leverage of workers to hit the kill switch on American imperialism here within the American empire.
Our candidates run as Democrats. We're on the Democratic Party ballot line. We contest the primaries. And when they're in the legislature, they're part of the Democratic Party caucus. But we don't agree with the way the Democratic Party establishment organizes or runs its party apparatus.
It's no secret that the Democratic Socialists of America hate the Democratic Party.
I think we're all on the same page that we hate the Democratic Party.
The Democratic Party is not really our friend. It isn't.
So why are the DSA such major players in the Democratic Party? This odd relationship can be understood with the cuckoo analogy. In nature, the cuckoo survives by trickery. It lays its egg in another bird's nest. The unsuspecting parents raise the imposter as their own until the cuckoo grows strong enough to push the true chicks out. The DSA is the cuckoo inside the Democratic Party.
DSA is not the Democratic Party.
We must separate ourselves from the toxic Democratic Party.
We can put forward a clear, aggressive, principled strategy that pushes back against the Democratic leadership and the Democratic Party as a whole.
DSA candidates run as Democrats in safe blue districts. They slip through low turnout primaries. And once inside, they use the Democratic label as camouflage while advancing an extremist anti-American agenda far beyond the party's mainstream.
Democrat Socialists of America meeting in Denver, more than half of them are wearing the mask. They also look completely deranged. It looks like another Antifa convention or something. And it's very, very sad. But you have to understand the psychology of people. They believe they're really going to get a free lunch. So they're already primed to be in a cult. And just like the Nazis wore an armband, these people have purple, green hair, look super unhealthy, take SSRIs, take all the deadly shots, and wear the mask because it is a sacrament that they basically buy into the system and whatever it says. I mean, right out of the corporate media, right out of the universities, right out of BlackRock, whatever BlackRock pushes in their ESG scores, most powerful, richest consortium on earth, 87% of world assets, they follow it to a T.
You have to force behaviors. And if you don't force behaviors, whether it's gender or race or just any way you want to say the composition of your team, you're going to be impacted.
So there they are wearing their masks that don't protect you. They always knew it gives you bacterial pneumonia. There they are completely buying into the system. And you just see how desperate they are, looking like total victims, totally lost, believing that Mondami and all these people are going to give them something free. For a little while, they'll get something free here and there, but it's only to transfer power to the state.
DSA victories prove their plan works.
I think that the model that we used in New York is 100% replicatable.
But it's the illusion that they're getting something free they like. Just like people buy lottery tickets, even though it's one of the worst investments you can engage in. It's the same thing as people going to casinos. The house in the end always wins in the aggregate. So it's a big problem. And of course, the fact that we have a crony capitalist system that's vertically integrated, run by the very same people pushing communism.
It's our duty, DSA, to cultivate this power.
The cuckoo is in the nest, not a Democrat, but Zoran Mamdani, an extremist within the DSA.
We understand that winning an election is not an end. It is a means to an end.
These corporate fascists who've consolidated the wealth of 1%, it's like 1/100th of 1%. People think that this is capitalism we're under when it's really monopoly, oligopoly, and where's Teddy Roosevelt to bust up the trust when you need him?
All right, yeah, we're back. So I was just looking at some of the comments. Susan sums it up well here. OMG, those aren't real people. Does anyone else see the demons behind their eyes? Yeah, that's the whole point. Yeah, exactly right. Exactly, Miss Susan. I've had some encounters with those type of people myself. Real recently, actually, just parking my car in a mall parking lot, and escorting my mother, who uses a walker, into the mall because we needed to go get her watch repaired, right? So as I'm parking my car in a handicap spot, I already unloaded my mother and got her in, and then closing my door, getting out of my vehicle, I've got bumper stickers on the back of my car. The most prominent one says vaccines KILL, right front and center on the back of my car. And then I've got, like in the Fed, and I've got Hillary for prison, and I've got a GeoWatch bumper sticker, and a number of different bumper stickers on the back. And I kid you not, someone that looked like someone directly out of that video we just watched, with green hair, bright green hair, probably young 20s, walking with her friend, who was fairly normal looking, walking behind my car, screams out, "What a freak!" F-R-E-A-K, what a freak! As I'm getting out of my car, and I'm probably a foot taller than both of them. And I'm closing my door, and then they both sort of hunker down and hide their faces. And I said, "What's wrong with being a freak?" And that was the whole point of the whole thing, is how ridiculous it was being called a freak because of my bumper stickers. And this is someone who is themselves with green hair and a nose ring walking behind my vehicle, telling me I'm a freak. So that's the world we live in. Yeah, Hillary for prison never gets old. Oh, you're the freak. Yeah, exactly. Right. Hillary for prison. Yeah, I still got that bumper sticker. Still very much, I think, applicable, because you know what? Donald Trump never put her there. He said he was going to, and then he never did anything, because they're friends. They're old buddies. Best story ever, Doug. Oh, thanks. I appreciate that. Yeah. It is highly ironic when you have someone with green hair and a nose ring calling you a freak. So I won't forget that one anytime soon. This was probably about, I would say not a month ago. It's probably been 3 weeks ago, though. Just never really brought it up and mentioned it on the show, but I figured it was a good time tonight with that particular video, and you could see how freaky these people truly are. But then again, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. I think that is exactly where we are. We are living in the end times. What's wrong with being a freak? I know. But apparently someone who's not going along with everything that we're told, swallowing the propaganda from mainstream, i.e. that vaccines are wonderful and that fluoride is wonderful. I do have a fluoride sticker as well. And that we're supposed to just take it all in and believe everything that we're told, and that's what these people do, unless they're told things like vaccines are bad for you or geoengineering is actually happening. They would rather believe that it's not happening, and our government would never do that to us. So anyway, they are very brainwashed. Anyway, okay, well, let's keep moving here. We've got lots to look at tonight, but I thought that was an interesting video, and it went along with that particular article as well. So the voting here has apparently gotten to the point where people are starting to know that there's something wrong when you want the Save America Act passed, where you have voting ID required in every state, right? Well, people are realizing that at Olive Garden, they have more security for its never-ending pasta pass than America does for its elections. The never-ending pasta pass. Olive Garden. I don't think I've eaten in an Olive Garden in many years. But yeah, here's the story. Apparently, it's harder to get unlimited fettuccine Alfredo in America than it is to help choose the next president. Olive Garden's never-ending pasta pass requires a valid photo ID, no exceptions, and no finger-wagging lectures about oppression or racism. It's not an attack on precious democracy when you need to show ID to scarf down a plate of pasta. Meanwhile, 14 states and Washington, D.C. somehow managed to hold elections without requiring the same basic security demanded by a chain restaurant handing out discounted carbs. And the timing of this revelation couldn't be better. President Trump just addressed the nation about serious vulnerabilities inside America's election system. Yeah, he did, but the mainstream media networks wouldn't cover it. They wouldn't carry the speech. And everything he said in the speech, except for the first 5 minutes when he was bragging about how wonderful everything was, if you throw that out, everything else he talked about as far as China being involved and the elections are rigged and all this stuff, he has all the documents. They've released it all, apparently, on the government websites. President Trump revealed that China stole the voter registration data of 220 million Americans as part of his primetime speech on Thursday. He said over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting from China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That's you and me, for sure. Trump said in remarks from his East Room of the White House, the information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. He continued, the data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. But the Democrats are still pretending voter ID is some cruel and unusual punishment. Here's a clip here of Trump giving the speech the other night. Even Charlie Kirk knew China and Iran were dangerous to our freedom. Yeah, but I think the globalists are the true danger here. Meanwhile, Olive Garden is asking customers to identify themselves before releasing the Alfredo. And civilization managed to continue on without falling apart. Maybe our election officials should schedule a meeting over unlimited salad and breadsticks to discuss a new plan. Because if Olive Garden can protect a pasta promotion, the most powerful country in the world should be able to protect an election. Yeah, but I think that's the whole point. If we had protected elections, you wouldn't have Democrats getting elected. So it's a pretty good analogy, actually, for what's going on. Pretty wild. Never-ending pasta pass. That just does not sound healthy whatsoever. But yeah, I get it. I know why you would need to have an ID. And Mandami did that, though, this past winter. I don't know if you guys remember. I remember mentioning it then, that you had to show two different forms of ID. I think it was two. It might have been three. Two different forms of ID is what I remember. Just to shovel snow in New York City. You guys remember that? When they had so much snow, they were bringing in volunteer snow shoveling teams so you could make X amount of dollars an hour shoveling snow on the sidewalks in New York City. I don't know, it might have been the roads too, for all I know, but certainly on the sidewalks. You could make so much an hour, but you had to show at least two valid forms of ID just to shovel snow, but not elections. You could go vote as much as you want and never show an ID in an election. It's just shoveling snow and eating Olive Garden pasta where you have to show an ID. And of course, we all know that you have to show an ID on just about anything that you do these days, except vote. Well, it depends on where you live. In Tennessee, they do have an ID requirement. So you do actually have to show an ID if you want to vote. In this state where I live, there's a few states that are that way, but the blue states certainly are not like that. Pretty wild. Okay. Now, this one kind of has a little bit of a caveat. It's not exactly the way it is portrayed here, but you get the point. And we'll read the caveat as well. Cedar Point Amusement Park in Ohio. Have you been there? I personally have. I've been there a few times when I was a kid. Cedar Point Amusement Park in Ohio is holding an Islamic Muslim Day event. I'm sure you're having a Christian Day event also, right? At Cedar Point. That would be a strong no. I'm sure they're not having a Christian Day at Cedar Point. So this is the graphic they put out. But note, it does say Northeast Ohio Muslim Community presents Enjoy Muslim Day at Cedar Point. August 2nd, 2026. To purchase, go to, and then it's got all the, wow, that's expensive. Got the ticket, the parking ticket park ticket with parking is $39.50. Park ticket with water park is $44.50. Or the all-day drink pass is $13.49. Do Muslims drink? Well, they don't drink alcohol, I don't think, but they do drink other beverages, I think. Anyway, it's got all these sponsors here: the Islamic Center, the Mace Islamic Center, that's an interesting name, MACE. And some others here that are really difficult to read. It says, enjoy Muslim Day at Cedar Point on August 2nd. Yeah, so if you want to go get accosted, or RAPED'd, or beaten senseless with a baseball bat, or have your head chopped off in the middle of a ride, August 2nd is the day to go do that. Now, the context that was added here says the image shows that this event is being hosted by the Northeast Ohio Muslim community, not Cedar Point. So we're not blaming Cedar Point. They're just choosing to have Muslim Day at Cedar Point. Cedar Point was simply booked as the venue for a group event, which anyone can do. And then here is the booking URL. So they've used it as a promotion here, and not only, I guess, as the actual graphic putting out the announcement, but then also the reader context that they've added here also points to sixflags.com in the Cedar Point booking page. So that's pretty wild, huh? Anyway, just wanted to mention that just because I personally have been to Cedar Point. I do not remember ever seeing a Muslim at Cedar Point. But now, if you went, I probably went in the, when was it? I guess it would have been sometime in the 80s. I don't know when. But yeah, I don't remember ever seeing anyone in a burqa or a beekeeper suit or anything like that. Really until, I don't remember seeing anyone like that really much until I moved to Tennessee, and that was, in the 90s. And then at some point after that, I remember seeing, there's a pretty large, I think, Kuwaiti and Iraqi population in Nashville. Those were probably the first people I remember seeing that were Muslim people that were dressed that way. Anyone else that I would see like that, like when I lived in LA and stuff, I don't remember ever seeing people with hijabs and burqas and so forth when I lived there. But that was some time ago, so the world was different then. So apparently Cedar Point is having the big celebration of Muslims, but they will not be celebrating Christianity. Just make a little note there. All right, and then yeah, this is you could give this one the subtitle. The subtitle for this particular article could be Nightmare Fuel. I think that was something that Emily mentioned last week, something that was, I don't remember what we were talking about, but that this was Nightmare Fuel. I think that this could certainly be qualified as that as well. What am I looking at? Mutant raccoon roaming the streets of Seattle strikes fear in the heart of unsuspecting residents. There it is, a mutant raccoon. Small gray animal with its oddly rounded body, usually long legs and strangely shortened frame, was spotted wandering through Ballard, Seattle. So here's the video. I'll just play it once, but get ready. It's sort of like, reminds me of the Bigfoot footage, except it's Littlefoot. And he's mutant. And he's a raccoon.
What am I looking at?
Yeah, he is a strange-looking creature. It's clearly a raccoon, though. They've renamed him, or they've named him Jimothy. So Jimothy's is his name officially, although I don't know if he knows that. The creature was spotted Monday night by Kiana Hall, who was walking with her partner near the Ballard Goodwill when she noticed what she thought was a cat crouched beneath a parked car. She watched in amazement as this strange-looking animal emerged from beneath the car, crossed a patch of grass, climbed a flight of stairs, and disappeared. Once she got a better look at its distinctive facial markings, she realized it was a raccoon, just not like one she's ever seen before. Jimothy has short spine syndrome. So anyway, apparently Jimothy's been making the rounds on X, at least. People have been, Jimothy, I love that little trash panda. Yeah, Emily says. Anyway, yeah, he almost looked like he has 3 legs, but I don't know, he might not. So, pretty wild. Little doom break there. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3. The next 3 articles are all, I like to do follow-ups when possible. It's not always possible, unfortunately, But, sometimes you come across some articles in whatever the article's about might be really strange. This one was, if you remember the original article about the Tesla who crashed into a house at full speed. We covered that probably 2 or 3 weeks ago now on the show. And so this is an update here on what actually happened. And they now have released more details. Tesla driver who blamed his crash on autopilot pressed the accelerator 100%. NTSB finds. First, I thought when they said that he had pressed the accelerator 100%. I didn't know if they meant that he did push it down. And there's no doubt. People say 100%, meaning no doubt. At first, I thought it meant that, but I think it sounds like he pushed it all the way down to the floor. He floored it. Tesla driver who blamed crash on autopilot pressed accelerator 100%, NTSB finds. The NTSB findings back Elon Musk's claim that the driver manually overrode FSD. On Wednesday, the NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, released preliminary findings verifying Musk's and Tesla's claim that a driver involved in a fatal Texas crash that killed a grandmother who was just in her home, remember? He goes flying through this neighborhood and never hits the brakes and just smashes into her house, killing her. Doesn't kill the guy driving, though. He overrode FSD, full self-driving, in the moments ahead of impact. So he overrode it. So it says last month, 44-year-old Michael Butler told police that the autopilot feature was engaged at the time of the crash. On X, Musk disputed that claim, writing that Butler must have overridden the feature because full self-driving mode drives slowly through neighborhood streets, and this was a high-speed crash. That was the actual quote on Musk's tweet. Moving back to Musk's claim, Tesla's vice president of AI software, and I won't bother pronouncing that person's name, it's very difficult. I would say probably an Indian name. Eluswamy is the last name. Said that the internal data showed, quote, the driver manually overrode self-driving by pressing the accelerator all the way to 100% of the acceleration pedal in the residential area. So this guy had self-driving engaged, and then on top of that, he floored it. He hit the accelerator and pushed it all the way down. I wonder why. NTSB's preliminary report, which does not yet determine what caused the crash, confirmed Tesla's claims. Probe found that FSD was engaged at the time of the crash. So that right there wasn't a lie. But electronic data showed the driver manually overrode FSD, which is normally supervised, by pressing the accelerator pedal to 100%. According to a local ABC News report, Texas cops searched Butler's phone with his permission and found that he was working as a DoorDash driver when the crash occurred. The phone data showed that Butler had no issues with the Tesla making multiple prior delivery stops, but Butler allegedly told the police he passed out and didn't remember leaving the highway or turning onto the residential streets. He passed out. Okay. It seems that Butler may have wanted more reliability out of the autopilot feature, with Google searches on his phone showing queries like, and remember, he gave his phone to the police department so they could search it, and now they found his Google searches on his phone. But he gave them permission to do it, to look. His Google searches were queries like, quote, Tesla FSD not aggressive enough, 2026. Quote, Tesla not aggressive enough. And Tesla FSD too timid. If the Tesla had successfully navigated the course that Butler set before allegedly losing consciousness, which I don't think he actually did, the car would have turned left before smashing into the family home where 76-year-old Martha Avila lost her life. But ABC News reported that in the 6 seconds before the crash, the Tesla instead exceeded 70 miles per hour and continued straight after the pedal was pressed all the way down. NTSB said that security camera footage showed the car's path of travel as it continued straight through the intersection, departed the roadway, and struck the residents. Butler has been charged with manslaughter and jailed with a bond set at $150,000. So there you go. So yeah, he was originally blaming the car, blaming the self-driving mode. Turns out that might not exactly have been true. You know, self-driving cars, when they're used as they're programmed to do, might be safe, but if you are pressing the gas pedal down all the way, chances are it's not going to be too safe. That's what I think. Anyway, that was just, again, a follow-up on an article from a couple weeks ago. Then here's another one that I found that I wanted to follow up on. Gateway Pundit, outrage after illegal alien semi-truck driver who killed 3 people in a fiery crash in Southern California was sentenced to just over 4 years. Just over 4 years by a Democrat judge. 4 years. Another guy named Singh, an Indian driver. Singh, S-I-N-G-H. I think we did an article several weeks back now about how many Singhs were named that, last name Singh, illegally driving big rigs, illegally driving semis who had the commercial driver's licenses and crashing left and right, smashing into bridges and killing people and doing U-turns in the middle of the road and all this stuff. This guy named Singh, another guy, a different guy, the 21-year-old illegal alien semi-truck driver who killed 3 people in Southern California on a freeway last October, was sentenced to under 5 years in prison on Tuesday. He killed 3 people. Under 5 years. Singh previously pleaded guilty to 3 counts of vehicular manslaughter with gross negligence. Superior Court Judge Shannon Farty, F-A-H-E-R-T-Y. She was previously appointed by Governor Newsom to fill a vacancy, sentenced Singh to 4 years and 8 months in prison after he killed 3 people and injured several others in a multi-vehicle pileup crash. According to Fox News reporter Bill Malugan, Singh is an Indian illegal alien who was caught and released by Border Patrol agents in California by the Biden administration in March 2022. There he is. There's what's left of the vehicles and stuff that he smashed into. 3 people were killed on several others were injured severely after Singh plowed into vehicles on a freeway in Ontario, California last October. Eyewitnesses said the collision created a massive fireball after Singh failed to stop as traffic slowed down. Yeah, it showed the video. This is probably it here. That's the outcome of it. Although this appears to be a Channel 7 ABC report on it, but you guys probably remember this. This is not the guy who did a U-turn in the middle of the road and killed 2 people when they plowed into his trailer. This is a different guy. It happened at a similar time, but this was in California. And this guy simply just didn't look up from texting or whatever and just smashed right into these cars and just flattened several cars in front of him because he was still going full speed when all the traffic in front of him stopped. Singh was arrested on suspicion of driving under the influence of drugs, but a toxicology report later revealed he was not under the influence. No, he was just an illegal who didn't really know the rules of the road, probably couldn't read English, is my guess, and just plowed into these people because he wasn't paying attention. He killed all these people, 3 people. He was sentenced to 4 years and 8 months by a Governor Newsom judge that he appointed. Doesn't say when. Shannon Farty, or Farty. I don't know how you say it. There's no picture of her here. I thought maybe there would be. But anyways, yeah. There's justice for you. That's not good. Not good at all. All right, and then this one, another follow-up story. This is something I brought up a couple weeks ago when I heard about this. So this is more information on Children's Health Defender story here. Breaking: judge revokes bail for mother charged with murdering twins who died 8 days after vaccines. So you and I are probably convinced it was the vaccines that did it. Well, the state of Idaho is convinced that this mother did it. And if you remember, she warned the nurse and or the doctor when she took the kids in, these two little ones, took them in to get their 18-month shots. She warned them that they have a history in their family of vaccine injury. And the nurse said, it's okay, don't worry about it. You'll be just fine. They'll be just fine. And turns out that's not the case. They both died. A district judge in Payette County, Idaho, today, this was the 14th, so 5 days ago, revoked the bond for 23-year-old Andrea Shaw, a mother charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of her 18-month-old twins. Bail was initially set at $2 million. But today's decision means that Shaw will not be eligible for release on any amount of bail. So, I mean, setting it at $2 million was already probably not going to be reachable. But now there's no bail whatsoever. District judge revoked the bond for Andrea Shaw, who's been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder and the deaths of her 18-month-old twins. Now Shaw is not eligible for release on any amount of bail. Shaw was indicted by a grand jury and arrested on June 30th on allegations that she deliberately suffocated her twins. That's what they're saying here. Who died on May 1st, 2025. Prosecutors allege the children were killed while sharing a bed in their home. Shaw, who pleaded not guilty, has consistently denied the allegations. She alleges that her twins' deaths were caused by the vaccines they received at a routine doctor's appointment just over a week before they died. The toddlers both had documented adverse reactions to the shots. In a motion filed, but it can't possibly be those because we all know they're safe and effective. I'm just adding that. In a motion filed on Monday, defense attorney Joseph Filicetti argued that the $2 million bond is excessive and should be reduced to $100,000 with reasonable release conditions. Prosecutors opposed any bond reduction, because they're the good guys here, remember, arguing that the evidence supports the murder charges and that Shaw should remain in custody. Prosecutors said the court had been generous in granting the bond, which, in the state's opinion, Shaw was not entitled to. Bond is discretionary in capital cases, the prosecution said, and they suggested that she should not be allowed near her new infant. And if you guys remember, there was, I think in the last article that we read about this, she had just given birth back in June, so just a month ago or something. The defense argued that Shaw has no criminal history, not even a parking ticket. She's remained in Idaho throughout the more than year-long investigation, has strong ties to the Payette area, and recently gave birth by cesarean section to a premature daughter who needs her mother. Filicetti said that Shaw's postpartum medical needs and her newborn's dependence on her legally justify release under supervised conditions. He argued that bond is meant to ensure that a defendant will attend court, not to punish them. The defense has also contended that the prosecution's case is entirely circumstantial. He noted that there is no confession, eyewitness, or admission connecting Shaw to the children's death, and that the grand jury was not informed about those shortcomings in the state's allegations. Documentation supports Shaw's statement on April 24, 2025, the day after the twins received the vaccine. She took them to the emergency room where they were lethargic and their lips had turned blue. The treating physician in the ER diagnosed them with, quote, post-immunization reaction. So the ER doctor knew what was going on. The children remained ill in the days leading up to their deaths, 8 days after receiving the shots. And Shaw repeatedly sought medical advice, according to court documents. So she was doing her best, and yet the grand jury indicted her. And it talked about how this nurse was supporting her and believed her. Prosecutors filed a motion opposing the bond reduction. In their summary of the evidence, they said that investigators ruled out other possible causes of death, including heat exposure, carbon monoxide poisoning, and vaccines during the investigation. They did acknowledge that the infants had suffered side effects from the vaccine and that at least one of them was still suffering reactions at the time of death. They argued that the only conceivable explanation was that the twins were suffocated, and cited one expert who said that the autopsy findings included pulmonary vascular congestion and pulmonary edema in one of the twins are consistent with suffocation. Yeah, but I wondered if they looked up side effects of those particular vaccines. Because it could look like that as well, That's what SIDS usually is vaccine injury. So, anyway, I just wanted to follow up on that. It appears that the state of Idaho is out to get this lady, and she will not be seeing her family anytime soon, it sounds like. Hopefully that's not the case, but it sure looks like it at this moment. 23 years old. Anyways, so that's the other follow-up article I had for tonight. All right, let's keep moving here. We've got lots of stuff to look at. Watch Trump does Marine One flyover before attending the FIFA final match today in New Jersey. World Cup final between Argentina and Spain is underway at MetLife Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey. President Trump is in attendance. I don't know if you guys remember, but we did a short little video clip and talked about it briefly. I think it was a Bound report from maybe a month ago now, where they had people going down into the sewers, like military-age men going down into the sewers in New York City and New Jersey area, like at 2 and 3 in the morning, and then coming back out at the wee hours in the morning. Like they were going down in groups of like 8 and 10 people at a time. And people were positing that they might be going to do something with regard to this this FIFA final game that happened today. Well, clearly that was not the case, or if it was, then it was somehow thwarted or didn't go off. So, luckily, no one was injured in the final soccer match here. But yeah, he flies over the stadium in Marine One, making an entrance, as it were. I don't think there were probably that many people that were happy to see him. Trump was later seen in packed stadium with over 80,000 roaring fans during the singing of the national anthem, performed by Grammy Award-winning artist Jennifer Hudson. So several clips here. He's quite the soccer fan, I guess. He's probably not really. He just pretends to be so that he can get the FIFA organization to go along with whatever he wants, which is getting more of the games here, because he knows what a boon it is for local economies. So anyway, all that to say that nothing apparently happened with the people going down in the sewer systems. People were alleging that it could have had something to do with this game coming up, which, it's possible that there still could be something that happens, but hopefully not. Pretty wild. So you guys know about this whole Ashley Webb thing? This all happened over the last couple of days. This person, Ashley Webb, is a trans person, and it's quite the story. Says, sorry, Ashley Webb. Troy Jackson secures the Maine Senate Democrat nomination to replace accused rapist Graham Plattner. Which, I don't know if you guys have been following it, but this whole thing, to me, is a little surprising. Since when do Democrats care a whit about somebody that they have nominated to get power in any position? Since when do they care that he has a history of being accused as a rapist? Whether or not he was is really not even important. The point is, Democrats have never cared about this, and yet they do on this one. I can't really figure out why that might be the case. Anyway, but this is about Ashley Webb here. Next time, Ashley Webb. Troy Jackson secured the Maine Senate Democrat nomination to replace accused rapist Graham Plattner after he received the majority of the delegates. This isn't set in stone, however. Almost 2/3 of the delegates have committed to voting for Jackson, a fifth-generation logger, who's in this video clip here. Jackson is backed by radical socialist Bernie Sanders and made an appearance on the Fight the Oligarchy tour earlier this year. Yeah, he's got quite the colorful speech here in this video clip. Troy Jackson has effectively secured the Democrat nomination in the crucial Maine Senate race, winning the support of a majority of the state delegates who will officially nominate a candidate next weekend. And then this is the other guy, Plattner, dropped out of the Maine Senate race amid explosive rape allegations. Again, since when do Democrats care about that? So this clip right here has this person, Ashley Webb, that I mentioned, that, again, was vying for this position as a senator, I guess, from Maine. And you'll get the idea here when we see the brilliance of Ashley Webb. So here it is.
Ashley Webb, what qualifications do you have to serve in the U.S. Senate?
Oh, I ran for office several times. Didn't win, but I did run. And then I'm a songwriter, and then I write my own books. And then I suppose my transparency, I wouldn't lie to the people, and I wouldn't deceive the people like we're being deceived right now. Like,
he's a man dressed up as a woman. He wouldn't lie to the people like we're being deceived right now. So that clip right there has gone completely viral all over X. And you can imagine why.
we get lied smoke and mirrors, like what's going on with ICE, pretending like these victims did something wrong. Like, that's unacceptable. And I suppose the biggest thing is, like, I'm just an angry citizen now, and if I got elected, I'd be an angry senator, and I think that would probably be their worst nightmare.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, for probably multiple reasons, that would be our worst nightmare. Although, I don't know how the people of Maine feel. They might love this guy. But he's a guy in a dress saying, I'm not going to lie to people. But luckily, he says he's a songwriter and he writes his own books. Versus someone else writing his own books. Would he have a ghostwriter? And why is he writing books? What does he have to say? But luckily, yeah, he's a songwriter. Mm-hmm. But when I saw this, you know, I thought, I don't know if you guys know, probably don't, my history with, well, some of the music people that I've worked with over the years. I thought, man, this guy unfortunately looks a lot like Meatloaf. You guys remember Meatloaf from the 70s? Now, Meatloaf never wore dresses, don't get me wrong. But his face and his hair, his stringy hair and stuff, remind me of Meatloaf. And that is not to put down Meatloaf at all. And I don't want to go down that road just because I knew the guy. Meatloaf, not Ashley Webb. So here's the comparisons, and I wasn't the only one that noticed this. This is all over X. Ashley Webb, Democrat, aka Transloaf, is what they're calling Ashley Webb, the guy we were just watching. Transloaf, Meatloaf's cousin, running for Maine Senate nomination. It's the Bat Out of Hell nomination. So this is the real Meatloaf, and this is Transloaf, which is the guy that we just saw, Ashley Webb. They do look similar, though, you must admit. Very similar. Now, this right here is just an AI creation of, you know, an AI-generated Meatloaf walking next to an AI-generated Transloaf. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and, yeah, if you don't believe me about my history, on my website, which is still working, by the way, the website is still up and running. Talked about that last week. Somewhere on here. Let's see, right here. In his Ocean Way days, Doug worked with many top recording artists such as Natalie Cole, Bonnie Raitt, Stevie Nicks, the B-52s, Meatloaf, and others. And I did know Mr. Loaf. I was around him a lot. His real name was Michael Aday, A-D-A-Y, Michael Aday. And he was an interesting guy. He was a very cool guy. Again, not a trans person. he was in a number of different, I guess, films and things like that as well. He was in Rocky Horror Picture Show. That's probably the show that he was most known for. In late 1973, Meatloaf was cast in the original Rocky Horror Picture Show, playing the parts of both Eddie and Dr. Scott. So anyway, now when I was involved in this project, this was Bat Out of Hell 2, which was a follow-up to his original Bat Out of Hell album. Looking to see, there's more what he looked like later in life, 2019. Now, the guy that he was with in the studio when I was working at Ocean Way was Jim Steinman. Jim Steinman was a well-known producer and songwriter. Let me see if it says. I think it said something about. The thing that surprised me was that he died in Nashville, which is where I am now. I didn't realize he even lived in Nashville. He died in 2022. So that's sad. And Jim Steinman was the guy he worked with. Steinman was a songwriter and producer. And he was a little quirky, but he was a nice guy as well, for the most part. I was around him some as well as Mr. Loaf. As everybody called him Meat. Nobody called him Michael or Mr. Aday or any of that stuff. His name in the studio was Meat, M-E-A-T, Meat. Again, super nice guy. But it was Jim Steinman calling the shots. He was the producer. He was a songwriter. And if you don't know who Jim Steinman is, you know his songs. He wrote Total Eclipse of the Heart. Jim Steinman did. And here, let me go to this page. There's Jim. Now that was 1989. This is about probably a year or two or so before I knew Mr. Jim here, Steinman. He wrote Total Eclipse of the Heart by Bonnie Tyler, and he also wrote Air Supply's song Making Love Out of Nothing at All. And he also wrote Meatloaf's song I'd Do Anything for Love, but I won't do that. And that one was recorded when I was there. I'd do anything for love, but I won't do that. You guys probably have heard that song. Anyway, he had some huge hits and was a multi-millionaire just from his songwriting. Jim Steinman was. But again, really cool guys. I had a really good experience with working with those guys. And here's the album cover we're talking about here. Bat Out of Hell 2, Back into Hell. Recorded at Ocean Way, Hollywood. That's where I worked, right there. Recorded August 1991 to June 1993. That's about right. It seemed like they were there forever. But they were good guys. They were good people. Some of the other people around that were on the outskirts of the main two guys were a little questionable at times, but Jim was okay, and Meat was a really cool guy. So, anyways, yeah, that's the album that I was involved in. It came out in 1993. So I just thought I would go down memory lane here for a little bit. Hope you didn't mind. But that's pretty weird, though, about Meatloaf and this guy looking so similar. Now, this one, I'll read through this, but this guy is completely delusional. This Ashley person, which who knows what his real name is? I don't know. It probably says somewhere. Transgender Maine Democrat Senate candidate claims he has a monthly period through his butt, through his rectum. This guy is completely disturbed. Webb is running on a platform which includes transparency, and he may be more transparent than any other candidate in American political history. The rectums of both males and females may bleed from a variety of health issues, ranging from hemorrhoids to cancer, and he's saying that he experiences this. So he clearly has some other problems here. Maine Senate candidate Ashley Webb reportedly claimed that he experiences monthly ovulation via excreting blood through his rectum. These people are absolutely sick. Breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. Man, to bring back the days of meatloaf. That's what I say. That's when things were nice. You guys remember the early 90s? Things were normal. Jeez. All right, enough of that. This one I thought was pretty wild just because I didn't know it was going on. It says the flyovers will continue until morale improves. Secretary of War Hegseth backs up military pilots after controversial flyovers. Secretary of War Hegseth defended military pilots on Friday after U.S. Navy Blue Angels jets flew low over the ground, flew low to the ground over Pensacola Beach in Florida. Now, I was just down in that area in June, and there was, I mean, that is where the Blue Angels do their training and stuff. We didn't go see them, but well, actually, my wife did. She went the week before when I wasn't there yet, but it was fine. I've seen them before. But here's what I did not realize that they were doing. Look at this. The Florida flyover sent beachgoers' belongings into the air as jets flew extremely close to the crowd, causing some media outlets and Democrat politicians to whine about the stunt. So there's a couple of videos here. Look how close that is. That is not AI. Okay, watch. Blue Angels. It's just right there. That's all further away. People are loving it. Yeah, that's pretty insane. Here's another one. Well, you get the idea. Yeah, that's crazy. I can see why the Democrats would not like that. Carry on, Patriots. Yeah, that's pretty wild. So the Blue Angels. You can see a. Now that one is a fake picture, but you get the idea. It's they're right there, right above their heads. Now we did see planes flying over, somewhat close, but not like that. Oh, here's a different one. That was fast. Yeah. Anyway, that's pretty strange, but definitely wakes you up. Thought you guys would like to see that. Thought that was kind of neat. Give you a whole new respect for those guys and what they do. All right, let's look at this website. This is one we looked at last week. I wanted to see what new articles he had on his website. This is Dr. Chuck Baldwin here. Senate vote stuns Netanyahu. Shows support for Israel is slipping. I think that's good news. A passionate attachment of one nation for another produces a variety of evils. Sympathy for the favorite nation, facilitating the illusion of an imaginary common interest in cases where no real common interest exists, and infusing into one of the enmities of the other betrays the former into a participation in the quarrels and wars of the latter, without adequate inducement or justification. That is a quote from George Washington. The sagacious statement from George Washington above, taken from his farewell address, applies perfectly to the bastardized relationship between the United States and Israel for the past 78 years. Israel's influence, even control over the U.S. government, national news media, and evangelical religious institutions has been almost unchallenged. This has been acutely the case during every presidential administration of this century. And as President, Donald Trump has demonstrated overt obedience to Benjamin Netanyahu and the Zionist billionaire Epstein class that funds his election. That he has. In this column on June 4th, I warned of the intention of Donald Trump and the Republicans in Congress to merge the U.S. and Israeli militaries in a provision contained in Section 224 of the NDAA, National Defense Authorization Act. This is the act that provides annual funding for the U.S. Department of Defense and almost always receives an automatic rubber stamp from both chambers of Congress across party lines. So this is what he said in his column back in June, I guess it was. This section of the 2027 NDAA, for all intents and purposes, will make the U.S. and Israeli militaries one. This law would make Article 5 of NATO look like a strategio game by comparison. Can you imagine Benjamin Netanyahu, Ben-Gvir, and Smotrich having the authority to plan and command U.S. military actions? Yes, I realize that U.S. forces already act as a de facto mercenary army for Netanyahu, but this is subject to the accommodations of the U.S. president. The NDAA Act would require joint U.S. and military cooperation by law of Congress. If anyone still has any doubts about what country Donald Trump, Mike Johnson, and the Zionist lackeys in Congress are working for, this act removes all doubts. This presidential administration and Congress are doing everything that they can to make Israel great. They don't give a tinker's damn about the people of the United States. It's all about Israel. This past weekend, Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu was brimming with confidence that the U.S. and Israeli militaries would be merged into a unified partnership by the U.S. Congress due to the presence of Section 224 in the NDAA. Yeah, and the worst part, I don't even know if he mentioned that in this article, but Bibi wrote this himself and got it input into the NDAA. Bibi wrote it and then bragged about the fact that it was, brought into the National Defense Authorization Act. Bibi wrote it. Anyway, it goes on. This is the newest article from Chuck Baldwin. I think certainly worth a read. And we'll link to this in the Substack post that I send out. In the meantime, I've got a video here on this, so let's take a look at this.
I want to taper off the military aid within the next 10 years.
You want to taper it off to zero within 10 years?
Yes.
That would be a very dramatic shift.
Well, it's in the works.
So I talked to Bibi just a few minutes ago, and I said, what would you like me to say? He said, Israel's not going to live this way anymore. They're not going to live under threat from Iran anymore.
Netanyahu went on Fox to eulogize Graham and said, don't worry, we don't need your money anymore. We have a new plan. Yeah, to merge with our military and say you co-own all of our weapon systems and the $1 trillion of U.S. weapons sales every year.
The last conversation I had with him, I said, Lindsay, we've come of age. We have a robust economy. We can take care of our.
We run your Congress now, and
financing our own weapons for the defense of Israel and defense of our common interests with America. So I'm going to phase out the support, the military support for Israel over a period of years and bring it down to zero. We can do it. And he went ballistic. He said, "No way, you can't do that," because he was so concerned with our security, which he believed was your security, that he actually fought the Prime Minister of Israel on keeping America's aid or actually increasing it. And that tells you what kind of a person this extraordinary friend was.
The boldness, the arrogance of this. And again, I don't want to get rid of Israel. I don't want a river to the sea. I don't support the Islamicists. But I cannot support Israel primarying our leaders
We know why young people and middle-aged people are against the next war, because we'd be the ones fighting it. They're trying to bring back the draft. Screw that. We're not going to fight. We're not going to fight some other country's wars, are we?
I cannot support Israel openly bragging they basically control our foreign policy and now want domestic control, and 38 states have passed laws that if you criticize Israel, you can't have a government contract or a state job. And if you do get a job, it's a felony in Texas and a bunch of other states. The laws vary, but 38 have the laws. I mean, this is un-American stuff.
The ambassador, who's also a Republican, said, well, you might say that America let Israel survive, but it's Jews who created America. And he goes through, how much of America was based on the Torah, how the original symbol of the United States proposed by Benjamin Franklin was Moses parting the sea, that, many of the original symbols of America come from the Bible. And there are many references to the Bible in the early writings of American patriots. I quote some of them in my book.
Israel gives us as much as we give them. And a lot of Americans never fully understand that.
This is social credit score stuff. When the Democrats do it, I'm against it. When the EU does it, when the UK does it, when Brazil does it, I'm against it. And I'm against it when Republicans are doing this. It's unbelievable. The Defense Authorization Act 2027 now passed out of committee in the full House. It looks like Israel may get its merger, lifetime fusion, integration, these are all terms, marriage with the U.S. military and intelligence. They got an intelligence bill, does the same thing with Senator Cotton. Unbelievable. Will the Senate sign up this special office that merges everything from research and development right down to battlefield, right down to telemetry, and they co-own our military equipment and sales of it around the world, $1 trillion of it a year? Man, that is bold. And now it's passed out of both committees and is in the full House, and they got the votes.
Yeah, and I guess he doesn't really need help from the United States when he's part of it. So yeah, he can say that he's going to draw down the aid that we give him and so forth. But if his name's on the bank account and he has access by writing a check and doing anything and everything he wants because he's co-owner, then of course he's going to say, yeah, we're going to draw down the support because we just don't need it anymore. It's because we're taking over. That's what Bibi didn't say. Anyway, how about that? I thought that was a pretty good report. That's a John Bound report, InfoWars report, which is not InfoWars anymore, Alex Jones Network. All right, and then let's take a look at the next article I've got here. Speaking of old Lady G here, I don't know that any more information has really come out on what did him in, but Dr. Drew suggests Lindsay died of vaccine injury. Quote, I smell spike protein, he says. Famed TV physician and pundit Dr. Drew offered his medical opinion that if autopsy reports about Senator Graham's cause of death were to be believed, Graham may have been the latest victim of a COVID VAXX injury. Yeah, that's what we've been saying all along here. During a podcast interview with COVID skeptic Naomi Wolf, Dr. Drew said cases of aortic dissections, as Graham reportedly died from on Saturday, July 11th, have ballooned since the pandemic, at least anecdotally. Naomi Wolf does good work. She's her Substack's really good. I'd seen 2 in my entire career before that, Dr. Drew said. I don't know if it's COVID. I don't know if it's the vax, if it's both, but I smell spike protein, he says. Several scientific studies and reports likewise have linked the VAXXs to potentially deadly side effects, including myocarditis, a form of heart disease. Graham, 71, also known to be staunch and early supporter of the VAXXs, putting him at odds with many of the conservatives and libertarians in the GOP base. Yeah, and he was on camera like Trump is, probably more than once, but certainly at least once, taking the injections. So who knows? But there's still a lot of people arguing that no, it wasn't that. It was, the fact that he was still over there in Kiev and all this stuff. There's one report that I think could have some legitimacy if he indeed was still in Kiev when he died. And if he really did die of a heart attack, perhaps the heart attack was induced from the hotel that he was in being bombed by Russian missiles. I mean, maybe it's kind of both stories are correct. Maybe he still was in Kiev, but maybe he really did die of a heart attack. We don't know. And again, we may never know. So that is on Headline USA. That's where that one is. Now, speaking of Bibi, don't get your hopes up. And if you weren't a supporter of Zoran Mamdani, if he pulls this one off, you might want to reconsider. Netanyahu could be arrested during New York visit. Zoran Mamdani is in active conversation with the city's legal department over the legality of detaining the Israeli PM. Could you imagine if that happened? If you want to guarantee your reelection, do this. New York Mayor Mamdani has said he is exploring the legal possibility of arresting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu when he travels to the city for the UN General Assembly in September. Oh, please do this. The International Criminal Court, ICC, issued an arrest warrant for Netanyahu in November 2024 over alleged war crimes and crimes against humanity in Gaza, including starvation as a method of warfare and other inhumane acts. Yeah, and that was 2 years ago. Mamdani, who has characterized Israel's military campaign in Gaza as genocide, which that's what it is, vowed during his mayoral campaign last year to arrest Netanyahu if he visited New York. During an episode of the New York Times, The Interview podcast that aired on Saturday, the mayor was asked whether he still intended to fulfill that pledge. Quote, "I believe that Prime Minister Netanyahu belongs in The Hague," he responded, referring to the seat of the ICC where those accused of major international crimes are tried. He is a war criminal who has been charged by the International Criminal Court. And what you will find is that is an opinion that is held by many purely because of what his actions have wrought over these last many years. Whatever the law allows me to do in New York City, that's what we will do, he said. But we won't be writing our own laws to that end. So, man, again, could you imagine if he were to do that? Arrest Bibi. We need to start the memes now. So here's a new headline on RT. We're just kind of perusing this website. Kiev targets Moscow with 400 plus drones. Let me go see what this is. At least 85 drones were neutralized on approach to the Russian capital. Wow. More than 400 Ukrainian drones were launched toward the Moscow region overnight in one of the largest raids on the Russian capital to date. 400. 85 were neutralized. That means that 315 must have got through. The extent of any damage caused by the overnight barrage was not immediately clear. 6 people suffering from blast injuries were admitted to a hospital in Moscow. Latest attack followed several massive Ukrainian drone raids on Moscow, the surrounding areas last week. During one overnight attack alone, more than 370 drones flew toward the Moscow region. So this has happened more than once, maybe? I'm not sure if that's the second one or if that's what. I don't know. Another RT article, Strait of Hormuz crisis. What is the current state of the waterway? Well, I would say closed. I think it's closed. Closed for business. The key global energy route has once again been shut down following renewed U.S. strikes on Iran. Renewed hostilities between the U.S. and Iran and Israel, they always forget that one, have once again disrupted traffic through the strait after a brief period of relative normalization. The escalation comes after Washington carried out several consecutive waves of strikes on Iranian targets, claiming that the attacks are meant to protect commercial shipping in the strait. Tehran has responded with strikes on U.S. military facilities across the region and has declared the waterway closed. Yeah, I saw something that was saying, yeah, well, Iran keeps attacking us in Kuwait, in Qatar, in Jordan, in Bahrain, and Oman, and wherever else. And like, well, but U.S. and Israel started it. Iran wouldn't be doing that if they hadn't started it. So, I don't know. What's the U.S. position? I think we know what that is. It changes daily and hour by hour. What has happened to shipping? Several commercial vessels have reportedly been hit or threatened. Some of them have been sunk, actually. I've seen some video of some of them, at least partially submerged. Yeah, the UAE said that 2 tankers were struck by Iranian cruise missiles. 1 Indian crew member was killed and 8 others wounded, according to reports citing UAE and Indian officials. Shipping data cited by Reuters showed tanker traffic through the strait falling to its lowest level in 2 months as companies reassess the risks of using that route. Yeah, I would think so. What about oil prices? Oil prices eased after the U.S. and Iran signed the June Memorandum of Understanding, the old MOU-SE, which reduced fears of a full-scale disruption of the strait. Yeah, but only briefly. The latest escalation has reversed that trend. And then I found this one, too, and thought of something that I'm going to show you right after this. Israel planning to use crocodiles to guard Palestinian inmates. Crocodiles. The reptiles have reportedly been reclassified as, quote, tended animals. Tended. Removing a key legal obstacle for their use in prisons. Tended animals. Doesn't that mean not wild? Is that what that means? Israel has reportedly reclassified Nile crocodiles as tended animals, potentially clearing the way for their use as part of prison security. The controversial proposal to surround prisons with crocodile-filled moats. I'm not joking here. This is on RT. Crocodile-filled moats was reportedly floated, no pun intended, late last year by far-right National Security Minister Ben-Gvir, who argued the reptiles would strengthen security and deter escape attempts. You think? The plan was initially deemed legally unfeasible by the Israel Nature and Parks Authority because Nile crocodiles were classified as wild animals that could only be kept in zoos and wildlife sanctuaries. Yeah, well, Israel's found a way around it. The legal obstacle was reportedly removed this week when the Environmental Protection Minister redesignated the Nile crocodile as a tended wild animal. Tended. Israeli media reported on Friday. The new classification allows the reptiles to be kept in a wider range of facilities, potentially including prisons. Why don't we send a crocodile to go live with Ben-Gvir? How about that? Or with Bibi? The new designation reportedly comes despite warnings from the ministry's legal advisor, who told Silman she had no authority. Silman is the Environmental Protection Minister, who told her that she had no authority to unilaterally decide on the status of crocodiles and lay the groundwork for their deployment into prisons. A few weeks ago, Ben-Gvir and Silman reportedly held a meeting with the legal advisor and the Nature and Parks Authority. I'm sure he just told them this is the way it is. According to Israeli media reports, Ben-Gvir wants to first introduce the reptiles to Ketziat prison, a penitentiary in southern Israel that holds primarily Palestinian prisoners. After he first floated the proposal, the Israel Prison Service reviewed it and sent officers to the Hamat Gator crocodile farm in early January to familiarize themselves with the reptiles. So they're going to go pet the crocodiles. The IPS reportedly received the minister's favorable proposal, considering settling for smaller specimens that would cost about $8,000 per head, rather than elder reptiles costing around $20,000. So they're buying the small ones. So they'll just take off an arm or two and a leg or two. They won't kill you. until they get a bit bigger, and then watch out. But then, of course, you know, being the James Bond fan that I was, I immediately thought of this. Classic scene from Live and Let Die. I didn't play it with the, you know, the old video clip. This is just a GIF or a GIF. Some people say GIF. But it's an awesome scene in a Bond movie called Live and Let Die. If you missed it, then you missed something important. 1970, I don't know, 3 or something like that. I think it was Roger Moore's first movie as James Bond. Anyway, yeah, he's escaping the crocodiles. So that's what you have to do. So if you're a Palestinian, that's what you do, right there. Just wait for them all to line up in perfect order and just run right across them and you'll be fine. You'll still get away. Too insane. We live in a crazy world, don't we? All right, Trump threatens Canada. He's threatening Canada now over their wildfires ahead of the World Cup final, which happened today. I guess it was okay. You can see New York blanketed in smoke. Officials have issued an air quality health alert after smoke blanketed New York and New Jersey. Yeah, but he was still able to fly in on Marine One. We just saw that earlier on an earlier article. Trump has threatened to impose additional tariffs on Canada over their wildfire smoke, which has blanketed much of the northeastern U.S. just days before the World Cup final. Trump accused Canada on Friday of failing to manage its forests and allowing filthy, polluted, and unhealthy air to cross the border. Yeah, they need to put up the barriers, you know, between the U.S. and Canada that stops all the air from flowing. We are holding Canada responsible for the fact that they are not properly maintaining their forests and brush therein, Trump wrote on Truth Social, claiming that the pollution is costing the U.S. billions of dollars. This is willful negligence and becoming a yearly occurrence, which that's true, but some of these fires are being set on purpose. Not all of them, but some of them are, and some of them is being done, as Mr. Dane talks about, as a geoengineering plan. They're using wildfires and the smoke from them to cool the U.S. They're literally doing that. There are articles going way back on geoengineeringwatch.org talking about using wildfires as a geoengineering weapon. And that is, I think, to some degree what's happening, although some of these, are being set on purpose, perhaps for that. Perhaps it's just arson, people wanting to cause trouble, but this stuff happens every year. It does seem like it's worse, but I don't know. It says Canada's wildfire activity intensified in late June amid hot, dry conditions and several major blazes in northwestern Ontario, expanding sharply this week. Smoke from nearly 900 active fires reached New York City on Wednesday, pushing the air quality index above 200, which is classified as very unhealthy in some areas by Thursday evening. You can see what it looks like here. We are not far enough north where I am, so we did not have any of this where I am. It was a beautiful sunny day here and no smoke. But I couldn't imagine having to deal with that every single day. Air quality alerts remained in effect across New York City, Long Island, and parts of Jersey through Saturday. Officials warned that fine particle pollution could reach unhealthy levels and urged residents, particularly children and people with heart and respiratory conditions, to limit outdoor exertion, stay indoors where possible, and wear N95 or KN95 masks outside. Wear your mask. Well, in this case, it might actually do you some good. It might actually keep out some of the smoke particles and stuff. And plus, it'll save you from COVID. So, hey, we're all about that, aren't we? Okay, let's see here. Let's see what this is. Oh yeah. So this reminds me, this article we were just looking at reminded me, Trump threatens Canada over wildfires. Reminded me of this old man yells at cloud. It's kind of what it is, isn't it? It's Trump yelling at the clouds, yelling at the smoke. Trump threatens Canada over wildfires ahead of World Cup final. Old man yells at cloud. Yeah, seems pretty appropriate, doesn't it? Okay, I came across this one and didn't have time to read through it all, but I may do that just to see if it has anything. Well, I guess it's pretty short. See if it has anything about what I experienced years ago. But this is an interesting article. It's on a website called StarQuest, I guess. Never heard of it. Exposed the government's patented way to put voices in your head. What if the voices in your head isn't imagined, and the government actually holds a patent for putting it there? You guys know all about this, I'm sure. Voice to skull is what I'm talking about. Thousands of people who call themselves targeted individuals believe federal agencies are beaming voices directly into their skulls using microwave weapons. Sounds like classic tinfoil hat material, except the trope didn't originate with government conspiracy theories at all. It comes from a 1926 science fiction story about telepathic priests. And the underlying technology is not fiction. The U.S. Patent and Trademark Office has granted real patents for the voice-to-skull technology devices. The Army once had an internal glossary entry for them, and the CIA's MKUltra program proves the government really has run non-consensual mind control research on American citizens before. No kidding. Jimmy Akin, I guess, and Dom Bettolini trace the story of the real people at the center of it. Recording engineer Timothy Trespass. How about that name? Profiled by the New York Times, and Harlan Gerard, self-described dean of the targeted individual community. Through the actual science, Alan Fry's 1962 discovery of the Fry effect, the microwave auditory effect. 1973 Walter Reed demonstration that first embedded recognizable speech in a microwave pulse. The Cold War era Moscow signal and the classified Project Pandora investigation that followed it. Yeah, this is a real deal. This actually does exist, and we had, after my experience in 2016, and then exactly 1 month later, near fatal car accident that happened. After I recovered from that and was back home, we had Dr. Rima and her husband at the time, which he's now passed away, General Bert Stubblebine, who was a former, I think, Army general. I'm not sure what branch of the military. I want to say Army. General Bert and Dr. Rima were both on one of the episodes of Lost Arts Radio, and I was on there with the two of them and of course, Richard Sachs. And the four of us talked about what happened to me, and they said, yes, the technology, not only does it exist, it's been around for decades, and that, in fact, in the 1990s, after the USSR fell, the Soviets at the time, the ex-Soviets at the time, tried to sell that technology, meaning some version of voice-to-skull. They tried to sell that technology to anybody who would buy it. So the point is, it exists. It's been around a long time. And at one point, it was for sale. And, of course, they said no, but they said they were given a demonstration of how it works. So it definitely exists. I experienced it myself one time and would not recommend it. But I don't consider myself a targeted individual, but I've talked to people who do consider themselves that. The stuff they go through is a nightmare. I would not want to have to deal with that all the time. So anyway, and I've talked about my experience before, and we talked about it on that Lost Arts Radio show. I'll see if I can find that actually. Let me make a note here. Let's see. Let me make a note for the Tuesday or Wednesday sometimes Substack that I put out. Doug's interview with Richard Sachs, Dr. Rima, and General Bert. And I'll find that. It still exists. It's probably still on our YouTube channel, I'm thinking, but I don't know for sure. I haven't checked it for a while on Lost Arts Radio. But yeah, it is really interesting. They go into the history of it. And we had another guest on, Barry Trower. Some people pronounce it Trower, but it's Barry Trower, who was a former MI6 and MI5 spy, essentially, in the UK. And he explained yes, it's absolutely real, and he can demonstrate it if we wanted to. So he was part of his whole, CV was that he worked on microwave weapons, so he knew all about it. And again, he said he could demonstrate it. So pretty wild. Anyway, I thought that was interesting that I came across that article. Another technology type of article. In a first, a humanoid robot performed a live surgery. Under a surgeon's control, of course. Yeah, but it wasn't on a human. The robot removed a pig's gallbladder with standard surgical tools in an ordinary operating room. I guess the pig was experiencing some gallbladder issues. No, I don't know. They're probably just seeing if they could do it, I'm sure. Watchers held their breath as the robot made its first incision, hovering over its patient, an anesthetized pig with a robotic assistant standing nearby. It navigated to the gallbladder and gently removed it. The operation marked the debut of humanoid robots in a standard surgical setting. I would say to that, just the first time that it's happened in a public situation where we've seen it, but it's probably been going on a long time, I'm guessing. In the bowels of some of the secret labs and stuff underground. Operation marked the debut of humanoid robots in a standard surgical setting. The robot named Sergey, or Sergey, I guess, probably Sergey, S-U-R-G-I-E. Sergey wasn't autonomous. It was controlled by an expert surgeon, but the study is a step towards using humanoid robots as collaborators in minimally invasive surgery. Remotely operated and autonomous humanoid robots have real potential for amplifying access to critical surgeries to which patients would otherwise not have access, said the study author Michael Yip at UC San Diego. The study included 2 successful surgeries. Human surgeons remained on standby for emergencies, but the teleoperated robot completed the task with only minimal intervention. Feedback from surgeons operating Sergey was positive. They reported less physical strain and frustration along with better overall performance. But they also pointed to practical problems like intermittent overheating and the need to frequently reposition the robot. I would think also, too, if your internet connection goes down in the middle of a surgery, you might have some problems. Despite a long road ahead, humanoid robots have a viable future, said Yip. What a name, Mr. Yip. You can imagine these robots being deployed in remote communities where staffing is challenging or in austere environments like search and rescue scenarios where a massive deployment of field medicine is needed in a short period of time. Yeah, I could imagine a few other scenarios as well. Like, for instance, when you're due for a surgery and your surgeon's robot and the computer tells the robot that you won't be operating on such and such person because, for whatever reason, that person's political views aren't exactly what their social credit score would reflect. Or, who knows what reason. But they can just say, well, the computer said your surgery wasn't supposed to happen, so we can't let it happen. Or maybe you get the wrong surgery and have something else removed instead of whatever you're in for. So, yeah, you can see it going bad pretty easily. But I get it. This is on Singularity Hub, so it is kind of interesting where they're going with all of it. But I don't think it's good. Liberty Sentinel Substack. This week, the article I pulled up was taxpayers must fund a racist indoctrination of students, a federal court rules. A federal court dealt a major blow to Florida's Stop Woke Act. Federal court. Ruling the state cannot prohibit professors from promoting the Marxist concept of critical race theory. Wow. Florida taxpayers must continue to fund Marxist critical race theory indoctrination in government colleges and universities, according to 2 federal judges ruling against key parts of the Sunshine State's popular Stop Woke Act. That means that hard-working conservatives in the state will continue to subsidize their own demise. Ironically, as Florida Attorney General James Uthmeyer explained in response, the ruling would protect the supposed rights of college professors to promote white supremacy in the classroom at taxpayer expense. Florida Governor DeSantis, Republican star who championed the law, slammed the ruling for protecting what he called discriminatory ideologies. State universities are funded by taxpayers and directed by elected officials and their appointees, he said, noting that many institutions have been corrupted by ideology. The state has both a right and a responsibility to ensure instruction at these universities is consistent with the underlying mission. And to exclude indoctrination and ideological agenda, DeSantis said. The Stop Wrongs Against Our Kids and Employees Act. That's what woke means. Stop Wrongs Against Our Kids and Employees. Signed into law in 2022 by DeSantis, was designed to rein in the racist ideology known as critical race theory, CRT. But it doesn't sound like the crazy libs running the courts, at least, are going to allow that to happen. Not too surprised. Wine Press Substack, another summer of massive Canadian wildfires. Here we go again, another summer of wildfires up in Canada. Climate change is the cause, of course, says the mainstream media and the government. Well, it is geoengineering, but these people don't usually bring that up. They just conveniently forget, I suppose, or don't understand how it works, maybe. I don't know. Here we go again, another summer of wildfires in Canada. I wasn't really paying all that much attention, this guy says, to the main news headlines this week, so I was unaware that there were these fires going on. Yesterday, here in northern Indiana, I noticed the skies were really hazy. I thought perhaps it was another really bad day of cloud seeding. Well, there you go. So, he's awake to cloud seeding, at least. Meaning geoengineering. Then I woke up this morning, and my goodness, was the smoke thick. Here's some pictures that I took. You can see it there. It smells like a campfire out here. It smelled like something else this morning, especially almost kind of like plastic. But perhaps my sniffer is rusty, or I'm just imagining things. But apparently, based on these pictures and posts I've seen, it's even worse in Michigan and New York, and of course, Eastern Canada. Wow. So there's the Statue of Liberty, barely. No, I mean, he's saying that he's smelling plastics. Right here. Almost kind of plastic. That is something that Dane talks about often. Some of you may remember I wrote about some wildfires in Canada several years ago and how I thought the way those fires started were really suspicious and how those fires were probably deliberate arsonist acts, which is something I already mentioned. So speaking of that, let's take a little jaunt over here to geoengineeringwatch.org. The section is right here at the top, engineering wildfires. I'll put this in our Substack post as well. This toxic smoke apocalypse was just posted a couple days ago by Dane, and we'll look at that because there's a couple of short little videos on there I'll play. But you can see some of these other articles. Firestorms as a weapon, U.S. military exposed. Winter fire apocalypse, wildfires as a weapon, unforeseen circumstances, the Fawn Fire in Northern California. So it goes on and on. There's lots here about this whole idea. How geoengineering is fueling firestorm catastrophes. So this is just the first page. Climate engineering, clear cutting, and record wildfires. So there's a lot here. Let's look at this toxic smoke apocalypse. I was going to do this later, but I'll just go ahead and play these now because we're talking about it. 90-second alert. Here we go.
Toxic firestorm smoke threatens millions. That's from ABC News. No, not millions or even tens of millions. Hundreds of millions would be the correct statement, and worldwide it's billions. Vast portions of the planet are on fire. Fire behavior is unprecedented. Every year is worse than the last. Why? All official sources refuse to or are unable to offer any valid explanation for the increasingly catastrophic fires and fire behavior. Why not?
Every single person that I've talked so far has made the mention that I don't know why it's doing what it's doing. It's burning differently. It's burning more aggressive than it has in years past. And I know we say that every year, but it's unprecedented. It's burning in every direction all at the same time.
What is actually the core causal factor that is fueling the unprecedented wildfires and fire behavior? Has the horizon we collectively face become so unimaginably dire and the powers who manipulate it so insane that the answers to some questions are far too horrific to face for the vast majority, including nearly the whole of the science community? The short answer is yes. We are now in completely uncharted territory. All of us.
All right, so that's the most recent short little video post. He calls them 90-second alerts. This is one from previously. That he posted, firestorms as a weapon, U.S. military exposed.
Truly shocking. Forest fire as a military weapon. Final report, June 1970. Yet more insanity from the military-industrial complex. This formally classified U.S. military report provides in-depth detail on the methods the military uses to prepare vast swaths of forests for extremely intense forest fire incinerations. The United States Forest Service provided much of the data for the U.S. military. Question: is that really the job description for the Forest Service, to instruct the U.S. military on how to, quote, set the stage for maximum intensity forest fire incinerations by months-long atmospheric spraying of desiccants and defoliants? Are U.S. citizens and populations around the world now in the same category as the Viet Cong were during the U.S. invasion of Vietnam? Even more disturbing about this report is the fact that it includes specific data that outlines the best engineered forest fire incineration timing for various regions in the U.S. and other nations that are thought to be U.S. allies. Washington, D.C., Florida, New Mexico, New York, South Carolina, Texas, Utah, Minnesota, Los Angeles, Mount Wilson, Blue Canyon, Mount Shasta, California. Other countries rated for their incineration potential include Greece, Turkey, France, Spain, all of which are countries that have recently been hit with catastrophic forest fires. Just a coincidence? You decide.
Yep. Anyway, so those two videos are embedded here on the same post called Toxic Smokepocalypse in the recent column. On the right-hand side of GeoWatch, if you're on the newsletter list, you would have already gotten an email about that. So perhaps you've already seen that. But anyway, I thought it was really well done. And, of note, just the fact that there are usually arsonists that are caught setting these fires in Canada. But now you can see why. Perhaps they're doing it on purpose as a geoengineering, answer. Because that's clearly been something that they have been doing for a long time, using wildfires in that way. Total insanity, isn't it? All right, let's look at this one. All right, this is another wine press. Substack: Trump and Netanyahu's NDAA Israeli military merger has been blocked for now. The political ping pong continues. Also, Rand Paul voted in favor of the NDAA. Rand Paul is sort of all over the map, unfortunately. I want to like the guy, but he's not his dad. Let's just put it that way. Military merger between the U.S. and Israel has been placed on hold for now after Senate Democrats voted against the proposal of $1.5 trillion National Defense Authorization Act, which contained the controversial Section 224 that legalized the merger of the Israeli military and intelligence with the United States. The wine press Substack that we're looking at here first detailed this provision back in June when an amendment introduced in the House Armed Services Committee failed to remove it. The scheme was explicitly referred to by Bibi Netanyahu as, quote, my plan, and more recently acknowledged this provision during an interview with Fox News. Netanyahu admits to his plan to mesh America and Israel's militaries together, strengthening America's position on the battlefield. Our position. That's because we'll be the only ones on the battlefield. That's what he means there. He didn't actually say that. says, but the Senate just voted against it. Senate Democrats have blocked Republicans' National Defense Authorization Act, which would have given an additional $1.1 trillion to the Department of War and deepened military ties with Israel. Deepened is not even, that does not do it justice. It says, let's see. In a 50-46 vote, the Senate opposed an initial procedural vote to advance the NDAA. Senate Majority Leader John Thune, Rhino, voted against it in a move that allows him to bring up the bill again. So that's why they knew they didn't have the votes. He voted against it. Now they can bring it back up again. So that's why it says they've defeated it for now, because it's coming back. Thune wants this, as you surely know. Senate Minority Leader Chucky Schumer criticized the timing of the vote to proceed to the NDAA, noting that the White House formally notified Congress on Monday that hostilities have resumed in Iran. Yeah, every single Republican loves this, pretty much. Now, not Thomas Massie, but he's outgoing, as we all know. He's been taken out by Israel. Anyway, there's more here on the Substack post from Wine Press, another good one. And then this one from a website called Common Dreams, how Section 219, the U.S.-Israel military merger, would thwart American democracy. The merger would connect U.S. and Israeli militaries in unprecedented ways and make it exceedingly difficult for any future president to unwind this partnership with a foreign government, no matter what public opinion says. See how bad this is? Now, it's called Section 219. I'm not sure why it's a different number. It was 224 in the Senate version, so maybe this is the House version. I don't know. It's called Section 219, tucked away in a massive congressional spending bill known as the NDAA. Merges American military and Israeli military, which we've talked a lot about that tonight. Yeah, the House provision. That's what we're dealing with. So they're two different numbers. I suppose that's meant to be confusing, but it's not. They're just trying to make us the United States of Israel, essentially. And that's where we're headed, unless something changes, and it looks like Thune is all for it. Netanyahu confirms plan to merge U.S. and Israeli militaries again. Another article, Information Liberation. And old Lady G was all for it, obviously. Anyway, probably enough on that, but... Well, here's one more. Hold on. What was this? Wise Wolf. This picture's funny. The bill that just handed Israel the keys to the U.S. military, I would say kingdom. Section 219 of the NDAA opens the biggest security hole in American military history, and Congress canceled the vote to close it. So we won't go into that any further, I don't think, but pretty thorough article on the Wise Wolf as well. Everybody's talking about it, so that's good. Maybe it'll get stopped. I mean, for good, but it's been put on pause, but only briefly while they regroup. Leo Hohmann's Substack newsletter here. The flocking America is just the beginning of the long road back to freedom. Flock Safety is not the only private tech company positioning itself to profit off of the emerging AI data center-powered surveillance state. So we've talked a lot about the Flock cameras and all that. So this is a significant Leo Hohmann Substack. We started the show tonight with that very video, actually, from Greg Reese about Flock and Axon, Israel and American freedom. Bibi pushes military merger. And of course, they'll have access to everything, including Flock, all the technology. We went into that a lot last week as well, talking about how, the Flock cameras can be Bluetooth sensitive as well, to where they will pick up your Bluetooth signal in your car as you're driving by. So the camera picks that up and identifies those Bluetooth devices like your phone or your AirPods or your iPad, whatever you have in your car that's got Bluetooth turned on, if it's moving as a cluster all together in your car, then the flock cameras can pick up that signal and then attach those devices to your license plate. So now it knows, and that's put through their system. So now the technology is matching your devices, which means you, to a certain license plate. So anyway, yeah, the government is watching. So we won't go into that too much more tonight. Kind of running long here. I've got a lot to go through still. So let's keep going here. I'll just give you a quick views of some of these articles, and we will link to all of these on the Substack post. Flock cameras, go flock yourself. This AI video or little loop here is pretty telling, and that's not really that far off, is it? Got the old lady trying to get away and got her walker trying to get down the sidewalk, and flock cameras watching her every step of the way right on her tail. We are building an East Berlin-style surveillance state in America, one camera at a time, and your city council is paying for it with your money. Talking about how the police are misusing it, how the CIA and Palantir and everybody will have access to all of it. And then there's this one. How cops use flock to track people, not cars. So I had a lot on the whole flock thing again this week. I told you I over-prepared for the show tonight. I had tons and tons of stuff. Where are we at here? What are we running? We are running about 3 hours already. Wow. Time flies. Police departments around the country have used flock cameras at least hundreds of times to search for specific people, not cars, using searches such as, quote, heavyset male with black and white hat, or this one, person on skateboard, quote unquote, and, quote, person wearing orange vest and construction hat, according to data reviewed by 404 Media. That's this website, 404media.co. Sometimes searches reference a target's race or signs of their political affiliation. Yeah, looking at people's bumper stickers and stuff like that. So it's there. They're using it to track people, not just cars. Okay, a little doom break here. Got a couple of interesting not to be articles. This one is it says wild. It is wild. How would you like to be this family? This family spotted themselves in a photo on the wall of their Airbnb. So you might be like, what does that even mean? That's not creepy at all. Well, here, I'll just play the video. These, I guess, two sisters here. Video's been viewed over 1 million times on TikTok. Here it is.
Okay, guys, the weirdest thing happened. We get to our Airbnb in San Diego.
San Diego.
And we're like
random Airbnb,
looking through it, no connections to it. We're looking at this picture, and my dad is like, "This looks like me." And I'm like, "Oh, Dad, what?" No, this is my dad. That's my sister, Libby, when she was 10 years ago. And that's Brady, my brother, 10 years ago. He is they're literally in the Airbnb picture.
We have those swimsuits. We are literally in this picture.
It's the craziest thing.
We are on our Airbnb wall. This can't be real.
No, guys. We think this is crazy.
We are actually spiraling.
Isn't that weird? Yeah, how crazy is that? We're living in a simulation, aren't we? Are we like local celebrities? After identifying themselves in a photo, a family member reached out to the Airbnb host to figure out where the photo came from and actually found out that the photo was taken by a local photographer who had used the same image in multiple rental properties in the San Diego area. So there you go. San Diego. Thought that was that one was for Miss Emily out there. But yeah, that is a very strange one, to walk into an Airbnb place you've never been before and see yourself on the wall, picture on the wall. That is weird. All right, we got to talk about it. We have to talk about it, unfortunately. It's not the most pleasant thing, but it is kind of funny here. I've got some stuff about this that's funny. So just bear with me. Mexico warns citizens that traveling to the U.S. may expose them, meaning travelers, to contaminated lettuce from Mexico. The feds just figured out where all the diarrhea-inducing lettuce came from and how it got to all of those Taco Bells. Yeah, if you guys eat at Taco Bell, maybe stop. That might be a good plan, at least for a while. Our neighbor to the south, Mexico, thought they'd be cute and issue a travel advisory to their citizens. Here's the travel advisory. Mexico's government health services issue a travel preventative notice due to multi-state cyclosporiosis outbreak in the U.S. It wouldn't be difficult for it to have repercussions in Mexico given the high mobility between the two countries and spread across 34 U.S. states. Here's the official travel advisory right there from Mexico. There are two major problems. The first is that the Californian company Taylor Foods is a food distribution company, not a farm, and they import their lettuce from, you guessed it, Mexico. In fact, the FDA never specifically mentioned Taylor Foods. It only said the affected lettuce was from Mexico. And here it is right here from the U.S. FDA. Cyclospora, I guess is what it is. FDA and CDC.gov continue investigating a multi-state outbreak of cyclospora illnesses. At this time, we are advising consumers to avoid eating shredded iceberg lettuce from Mexico. Served at Taco Bell locations in Indiana, Michigan, Kentucky, Ohio, and West Virginia. But they said 34 states, so I don't know. That's not 34. That's 5. The reason Taylor Foods was mentioned is because that is a major supplier to Taco Bell, Walmart, and other big companies that purchase the affected iceberg lettuce. Mexico is effectively telling its citizens not to visit the U.S. because of Mexican-grown food that got contaminated by fecal matter in Mexico. As for the second problem with issuing a travel warning, real Mexicans wouldn't be caught dead eating at Taco Bell. That is hilarious. I don't want to make fun of anybody who's had this, but Mexico is out of control. Lettuce at Taco Bell in 5 states confirmed as source of diarrhea causing parasite. So, more information about this. I kind of just went through that. That's on Headline USA. And then, of course, you know me. I had to chip in as well on Facebook. I officially marked myself safe from leafy greens today. So, if you guys are ever on Facebook, that marking safe from various dumb stuff that happens, maybe, well, it could be something like an earthquake or something like that, but it goes around, you know, so marking myself safe from leafy greens today. It was close. It was close. I had a close call, but luckily I stayed away from all leafy greens things today. Not yesterday, though. And if explosive diarrhea was a person, they'd look a lot like this guy. I told you I had some memes tonight. You always got to stay tuned for the memes. Right now, chocolate is good for you and romaine lettuce can kill you. I've been training my whole life for this moment. I have. Another good one. Oh yeah, and then another good meme I found. This is not related to the diarrhea lettuce. U.S. Mint announces a new nickel design for 2027. We have the bison and the old crotchety guy who got rear-ended by the bison flying through the air with his suspenders. That is funny. So that's a new coin that's going to be minted, I guess. And then the ancients painted memes. So here's the memes that were painted by the ancients, I guess, which looks eerily similar to the poor guy getting rear-ended by the bison. Yep. Memes galore tonight. This one's not related, but it's common sense, and I've thought of this myself. I was watching a show called 10 Ways to Avoid a Shark Attack and was surprised that stay out of the water wasn't on the list. I've wondered that myself. But it just goes without saying. Stay out of the water. Then that's the best way to avoid a shark attack. All right. That's enough of that fun. Back to work. Let's go through just a little bit of this because we're running late tonight. My friend, Mr. Bryant, Revelation1823.net. Now, this is the next page. So what I did was, if you want to navigate at home and follow along, I was on the home page, right? If you scroll all the way to the bottom, which we're going to do just real quick, there's a green click here button to proceed to an overview of section 1. Takes you to vaccination history. Starts with rod of Asclepius. Asclepius. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. Asclepius, maybe? We are told that the snake is the symbol of medicine, but why? Does it represent the brass serpent of Moses in the desert? Not a chance. Yeah, this is the little animated video here. But you see the ambulance paramedic sign here. Welcome to the Temple of Asclepius, otherwise known as the seat of Satan, where the sick would come for healing. But why the snakes? Because the people who believed in the healing powers of the god Asclepius, also known as Savior Asclepius, believed he healed through the snakes. In this brief condensed chapter, you will learn why the snake is a symbol of medicine and why Eusebius, the father of church history, called Asclepius, quote, the god who does not cure souls but destroys them, the one who draws men away from their true Savior, end quote. Did you guys know about any of this stuff? The key to the puzzle, are you aware that early Christian martyrs who refused to worship the cult of Asclepius in the times of Diocletian were stoned, tortured, and burned alive? Same God, different tactics, question mark. Now, instead of the threat of death, he will rescue you from the next pandemic. All for the simple cost of corrupting your God code, your DNA, so that you may not be able to buy or sell. It says it's a 5-minute read. So we have the full chapter and download the PDF. That's where we are on this. So what we'll do is, I hate to go too far. Let's take a look at reading the full chapter. These are both PDFs, basically. You can download it or just open the PDF. And these PDFs are really, really well done. I don't know if you guys have clicked through and looked at any of these, but they're just put together with, an artistic quality. I think he does a really good job on all of these pages. They are just loaded with pictures and all kinds of data here. So let's just read a little bit here, and then we'll move on. But it's really important to kind of get through this. And again, you can download these PDFs from the website, totally free. This one is a 6-pager here. Revelation 18:23, and the light of the candle shall shine no more at all in thee, and the voice of the bridegroom and of the bride shall be heard no more at all in thee. For by thy merchants were the great men of the earth, for by thy sorceries were all nations deceived. Are we too blind to see what's right in our face? And he's got the medical emergency services, medical corps veteran, and one more here. I forget what that one's called. But with the snakes, intertwined around it. We're told the snake is a symbol of medicine, but why? Rod of Asclepius, symbol of medicine. From PubMed. Let me zoom in here. Maybe you can read it a little better. Does it represent the brass serpent of Moses in the desert? Question mark. Not a chance. Here's the short version. The Lord gave the people a serpent to look upon for healing, and as usual, they turned it into an idol, snake worship, until it was destroyed 700 years later in 700 BC. That's 2 Kings 18:4. But it was too late. The enemy turned the idol into the cult of Asclepius around 460 BC, invading Greece, Rome, and Europe. So where did the snake symbols come from? In order to understand, we must enter the world of Greek mythology, a collection of myths belonging to the god of Asclepius. Interesting picture. The god of Asclepius, Greco-Roman god of healing through magical potions, sorcery, son of the god Apollos. That's from Britannica. He's also known as the Savior Asclepius, Temple of Asclepius. This is probably the first time I've ever said the word Asclepius so many times in one day. This is where the sick would come for healing. It was known as the seat of Satan in Pergamus, Revelation 2:13. Asclepius was referred to as Savior Asclepius in the temple. The temple floor would be covered in what they believed to be healing snakes in honor of the god. This theme prevailed as new temples were founded through the classical world. You can see a big statue right there. Hygeia, the daughter and assistant of Asclepius. Did you notice the snake drinking from the bowl of wisdom? Right here. The bowl of Hygeia is the most widely recognized international symbol of the pharmacy industry. Right here. The serpent drinking from the bowl of wisdom represents the deceptive character of Satan deceiving people today. I remember Anthony and Kathleen Patch had a magazine, Entangled magazine issue, forget which month and year, but it had the bowl of Hygeia on the front, on the cover, because I designed the cover for him. Caduceus, 3500 BC. This was the staff of the god Hermes, father of Hermaphrodite, which means both sex organs. So that's it right there. Here it is here. Baphomet, the satanic god of two genders. See? In Greek mythology and in the occultic world, the caduceus has nothing to do with health or medicine. So why has modern medicine adopted this symbol? Its only purpose was for magic and to protect thieves and merchants. It is the spirit behind the deletion of the genders that's so prevalent in our society today. Let's connect the dots. Jesus versus Asclepius. As if there was ever a battle. Shall we look back in time to the 1st century? So we'll finish this page and then we'll move on. This will be through the first 3 pages of the 6 here. Did you know when Christians began their battle against the pagan gods for the souls of mankind, Asclepius was a leading deity in the struggle between the dying world of the pagans and the rising world of the Christians? Edelstein, I guess, said, Asclepius, a collection and interpretation of the testimonies. Must have been a source or a book or something. Stonemasons were beheaded for refusing to make statues to Asclepius. Christians were burned alive in Pergamum for refusing to sacrifice to the gods. Wake up, Christians. Know your past so you can see your future. Early Christian martyrs who refused to worship the cult of Asclepius in times of Diocletian. U.S. National Library of Medicine. Asclepius, a counterfeit Jesus. The Old Testament prophesied that a Savior would come healing the sick and raising the dead. Satan, who opposes everything God does, preempted the arrival of the Messiah by sending Asclepius as a counterfeit god of medicine. Wow. As Justin Martyr said, 1st century Christian apologist, and when he, the devil, brings forth Asclepius as the raiser of the dead and the healer of other diseases, may I not say that in this matter likewise he has imitated the prophecies of Christ? Eusebius, the father of church history, called Asclepius the God who does not cure souls but destroys them, the one who draws men away from their true Savior. So we'll stop there. We're 3 pages in of the 6 on this particular chapter. So let's go back to this tab. And again, Revelation1823.net, you can download and read the whole chapter here. You can actually download it from either one of these links, but this one takes you right to the PDF. You can download and save it to your computer. If you're back on the page we were just on, you can click the toolbar that lets you download it. So we'll move on next week to historical opposition to vaccines, pastor's perspective. Anyway, pretty cool. Just want to let you guys know about that. This one, I came across earlier today in my research for what to talk about tonight, and I wanted to see if they mentioned Ron Wyatt at all, figuring there's no way that they would, and in fact, that is the case. They did not mention him. However, they've said a few things in here that I've noted before and heard Ron talk about. The vessels of the Second Temple never disappeared. This rabbi knows where they are. So I wanted to see if he says they're in the same place that Ron Wyatt said that they are. And by the vessels, they're talking about not really just the Ark of the Covenant, which is the main vessel, but the other things as well. You know, some of the menorahs and the table of showbread and so forth. And I've done videos on this before on my Take It to the Lord in Prayer End Times Dates series. But that's all based on really on Ron Wyatt's research and work. But it is interesting. So I wanted to see what all they talked about on here. There's a video here. I didn't watch it, but it is embedded on this page. And he mentions the same organization that Ron talks about. It talks about the Ark, of course. But at some point here, he talks about the Israeli Antiquities Authority. And from what I can tell, he's close on some of this stuff, but not exactly what Ron Wyatt talked about. So he's close, but not quite the same. And of course, he never names names. He doesn't really say Ron's name, of course, but that's sort of to be expected. He described Vandal forces sacking Rome and carrying the vessels to Carthage, and the Byzantine general Belisarius later moving them to Constantinople after conquering North Africa. You know, there's all these stories about the Ark of the Covenant being in Africa and so forth. This guy in this article states, though, that it is in Jerusalem, which he's right about that, according to what Ron says. Although he does say that the Ark is under Temple Mount, which there's no way. But it's close to it, from what Ron says. Trace the Kelim, the vessels of the temple, meaning the Second Temple, among them the menorah and the incense altar, through what he said is a well-documented path after the destruction in 70 CE, which they'll never say anything but common era. They won't address Jesus's life as the splitting of time. So what they mean here is 70 AD, not CE. Citing the ancient historians Josephus and Procopius of Caesarea, all of the historians agree on this. He said, of the vessels 4 centuries in Rome, we have Procopius, we have the Theophanes, and all the sources are in the book. Yes, it's widely accepted that up until modern times, the theologians and academics all agreed that it was taken until it was put in the Nea Church, N-E-A Church. From there, that's where there's a bit of a question. I guess this is the guy here, Moskoff, that's talking. So anyway, this is on Israel365news.com. Anyway, well, I'll leave that one to you guys if you guys want to check into it. But I did pull up Ron's page on his site. I noticed they did sort of reformat the website. It seems like it's a little better. Ark of the Covenant. Discover the Ark of the Covenant, most sacred biblical artifact. Explore its history, significance, and enduring mystery of its location. And that video is embedded here on the page, and there's several others on this sidebar. And the ones from the Ark files they're really good. I was looking to see if any of those are on here. They do reference the Ark files YouTube channel every now and then, but it's worth looking at as well. I've used some of those clips from some of those videos in some of my Take It to the Lord in Prayer End Times Dates videos as well. So anyway, it says the Ark of the Covenant. This was published originally in the fall of 1996. What you're about to read is startling and may present new concepts that seem almost incredible, wonderful, and solemn new insight that has been shed on a subject that is central throughout the entire Bible, the salvation of man through the death and mediation of the Messiah. As you read this account, remember the biblical admonition to the law and to the testimony. If they speak not according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Talking about starting out in 1978 and then how it all unfolded and how he discovered it. And it's all here, and he talks about it in these videos. Ron's conclusions: the ark had to have been hidden between the 18th year of Josiah, when we are told it had been taken to Solomon's temple, and 35 years later when the temple was destroyed. It was not taken to Babylon based on the information from the scriptures which told what went to Babylon and what was returned. It was most likely hidden just prior to the destruction of the temple, when Jerusalem was surrounded by the Babylonian siege wall, and it was hidden somewhere within the confines of the city wall of Jerusalem and the Babylonian siege wall. The entire city and the temple were destroyed in 586 BC by the Babylonians, so the ark could have only escaped destruction or captivity by not being anywhere in the city. Again, the site he had pointed to was, and he believed, outside of the ancient city wall and within the siege wall. It was supposition based on study, but still only supposition, yet it was enough to base a decision on, and he decided to go ahead with the excavation. So then it talks about some of the history of it and location of the excavation and so on and so on. Anyway, the location, of course, was right beneath the hole where the crosses dropped down into the ground, the cross hole, where Jesus died on the cross, and he was pierced, his body was pierced, and the water and the blood ran out of Jesus' side and down through the, not only through the cross hole, but the crack in the hill there, in the mountain where the cross was, and down right onto the mercy seat, which is just an incredible story. And then Ron discovers it in the 80s. So it's pretty wild. So it's a really, really interesting account. And I just mentioned this earlier. This is sort of a sidebar, but still worth mentioning. It says, now this is just an X post here, but this lady, Lauren Witzke, posted, "I am absolutely aghast. The Bible Museum in D.C. has the Dead Sea Scrolls on loan from the state of Israel. As part of this loan agreement, Israel required that the museum remove the term BC, as in before Christ, to refer to the years in the exhibit. They are mandated to use CE because they find the name of Christ so offensive. Judeo-Christian, quote-unquote, values are a myth. There's no such thing. Israel only uses the term to manipulate Christian America into doing what they want." Then here's a short little video on that. But yeah, it's kind of what we were just talking about earlier. Now this one I'm not going to play the video of, but I thought it was really interesting, and I will link to this. Hold on. I will link to this in my Substack post, just because we're running short on time tonight. China accidentally proved Jesus 5 times using their own records. China's emperors were sacrificing animals to a single all-powerful God for 4,000 years. Same ritual, same prayer, same God, just a different name. That's point 1 of 5. This video covers 5 moments from China's own recorded history, a Tang dynasty emperor who personally built a Christian church in 638 AD. The Nestorian stele, buried underground for centuries, that the Chinese government now keeps in a Xi'an museum. Christian scriptures written in Mandarin, sealed in a cave for 900 years, and ancient Chinese characters that map directly onto the Bible. None of it taught in school. All of it documented in Chinese sources. This guy that's talking here says, "I am Cantonese, grew up in Australia. History class gave me none of this. That's why I make these videos." So yeah, talking about, I watched that. It's a short little 7-minute video. Really interesting. Just shows how Jesus was exactly who we all believe, at least in this audience, believe he was. And in fact, the Chinese knew it as well. They just, once they became communists, it all has to go underground. It all has to be hidden. So he makes a good point there, though. Ron Wyatt miracle nobody's talking about. Miracle proves that God guided Ron to discover the most amazing archaeological locations on Earth found in the Bible. So this is just another video that I came across that might be worth watching. It's 50 minutes from a channel called Go For It Christian. It's called Ron Wyatt Miracle Nobody is Talking About. This one is all about the Noahide religion forming in Jerusalem. So this one is less than 20 minutes long. The One World Noahide Religion Forming in Jerusalem. It's on a channel called Truth Be Told. Truth and then the letter B, told. He's got a lot of subscribers, so he is somebody that people are listening to. What if the one world religion does not look evil at first? In this November, a global religious movement is gathering in Jerusalem for something most Christians have never even heard of. On the surface, it sounds moral, peaceful, and almost impossible to disagree with, but there's one question every Christian needs to ask: where is Jesus? In this video, Jeremiah James breaks down a movement rising around God, morality, peace, and the nations, and why Christians need biblical discernment now more than ever. This is not about fear, hatred, or anti-Semitism. It's about testing everything by Christ. So this one might be worth a watch. I did watch some, but not all of it. Just ran out of time tonight. But what if the one world religion sounds good for starters? So anyway, might be coming very soon, I would think. All right, let's jump back over to, we're looking at GeoWatch. So let's go back to that. Dane was on with Greg Hunter on USA Watchdog. So I'll link to this in my Substack post. Another good interview. Climate engineering, drought, heat dome, and wildfires. Stuff that we've covered at length tonight, but if you're interested in that, we'll provide a link, or you can just obviously look it up, usawatchdog.com. And then GeoWatch for this week, the show was Engineering Smoke Apocalypse. Wildfires set record levels of hazardous air in the U.S., with more than 100 million people under air quality alerts. New video shows hazardous Canadian wildfire smoke pouring into major cities from the Midwest to the East Coast. Wildfire smoke can actually change the weather. By blocking sunlight, it can keep temperatures lower than expected. Are firestorm smoke canopies being utilized as a form of solar radiation management in spite of the horrific cost to the environment and populations? So he talks about that on this week's Global Alert News. So that is on GeoWatch, and then I was going to look at the scheduled weather and see what it looks like. Yeah, more heat, pretty much. The corners, I guess, Seattle and Maine will possibly be a little cooler, but they're still focusing here on Alaska is below normal again. So normally it's, pretty warm, but they're allowing the U.S. to warm up significantly, it looks like, while they try and cool down Alaska. Again, the possibility of a blue ocean event happening this year is definitely there. That's when the ice all melts and doesn't come back. That would be monumentally bad. So if you guys want to help out what I'm doing, I would really appreciate it. I noticed I lost another paying subscriber on Substack yesterday. And that was not because of somebody that was unhappy with anything I said or did or didn't do or any of that stuff. It's simply that they let their billing method stop working or whatever. So, that's something that's easily fixable and really helps what I'm doing a lot. If you will maintain that, that's really, really cool of you. And if you want to let it go, that's fine too. I mean, no hard feelings, obviously. But keep in mind that all of this effort that I'm putting forth to do this show is because I feel led to by God. I feel like we need to put out every week all the information that proves that we are living in the end times, because I personally believe we are. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And obviously, it takes a lot of time to put out a show like this. So anyway, not just the live part, but all the editing stuff that I have to do and sending out the emails and doing all the clips and all that. So know that the Substack is available there if you want to help what I'm doing. There is a payment mechanism built in there, as well as Subscribestar. Both of those have been around for a while. I've been using those, and there are different levels of giving. And then, of course, there's the newest mechanism I have here for supporting what I'm doing is Buy Me a Coffee, which the link is just kind of stays on the screen down there. But that's what that page looks like. And we've got a few supporters that have helped me out that way. So that's just kind of a one-time donation, which is certainly welcome and really awesome. So thank you guys for stepping up and doing that. We've got the link tree, which is the QR code up there in the corner that I always try and mention. Takes you to all things Diamond Report, and even to my Music Biz site as well. So nothing else to report on any of that this week as far as the website. Everything was functional and worked well all week this week. So I guess I'm not attacked this week, so that's good. But yeah, I had a lot of really good comments actually from folks who were concerned, but also were glad that the Diamond Disc Audio website was able to come back up and I was able to get it revived and stay in business. Because again, that's exactly how I fund the Diamond Report. It all comes from the same place. So anyway, the next Diamond Report live will be on the 26th. So July 26th coming up. We've got a birthday celebration coming up this week. Not for me, but my daughter's birthday is on Thursday. So anybody who wants to wish her happy birthday in the chat, I will be sure and let her know. Her name is Jenna, Jenna. Yeah, she's turning 19. I can't believe it. And we've got Move Out Day coming out real soon. So Move Out Day is coming up. And we're kind of sad about that, but she does want to go to college, and we do understand. So it is what it is. But yeah, that's coming up in a couple weeks. So let's see. I'm looking to see exactly when that is. About 3 weeks. Something like that. So hoping to not have to miss any shows, but we'll see how it works out. I don't think I will have to miss any shows. So anyway, that's coming up, and that's always a big step for people who are getting their life started. And she's obviously very special to me, and has a birthday coming up this week. So we'll be celebrating that at some point with family. So looking forward to that. Not much else going on this week as far as I know. Happy birthday, Jenna, Emily says. Thank you. Yeah. I'll make sure and tell her that you said so. Hopefully you guys will have a blessed week this week. Hopefully we will as well. And we'll be right back at it next week. 26th at 9 p.m. Central Time. We will do it again then. And we'll see you guys at that point. And hopefully our world will stay together, although things are looking a little crazy at times, aren't they? Again, breaking news that proves we are living in the end times. That's what this show's all about. And keep Jesus front and center in your life. And that's about the best advice I can give you. Make sure you keep him close and keep your family close. And we'll do it again next week. Hopefully you guys will be back. And we'll see you then. Blessings all. Love you guys. Talk to you again real soon.